Between the 5th and 11th centuries, roughly 85% of England's population lived as serfs, tied to land they could never leave, performing back-breaking labour from dawn till dusk and sharing one-room homes with their livestock just to survive. Life was relentless and unforgiving, but somehow these medieval peasants endured conditions that would break most modern humans within days. Here's what life was really like as a serf in early medieval England. Before the story, if these help you sleep, like or subscribe would be cool. Also, drop where you're listening from and the time. I check the comments and it's crazy seeing people from like Australia and Norway on the same video. Alright, tonight it's early medieval England, but first things first, get yourself comfortable. And I mean properly comfortable. This is going to be a good one. Your eyes crack open to darkness and the unmistakable smell of smoke, earth and animal dung. The roof above you is barely visible, just the underside of thatch where tiny creatures occasionally rustle and scurry. You're not alone in here, not even close. A chicken struts across your feet. Your family's precious pig grunts from its corner. The goat, your literal roommate, chews thoughtfully near your head. You're all sharing this single-room home made of wattle and daub, basically mud slapped over a woven wooden frame. And let me tell you, on this freezing morning, you're not exactly mad about having warm bodies around. Get up, your father grunts. Sun's almost here. You stir from your straw pallet on the hard-packed dirt floor. Unlike your memory foam mattress right now, there's nothing soft about where you've been sleeping, just a thin layer of straw that's been compressed by your body for months. You haven't changed it because, well, where would you get fresh straw in winter? The cold hits immediately. You're wearing the same wool tunic you wore yesterday and the day before. Actually, you've been wearing it since October. It's now February. No, you haven't washed it. Are you insane? It's freezing outside. Plus, washing clothes is a whole production involving lye that would destroy the natural oils that make the wool somewhat water-resistant. Besides, everyone smells exactly like you do, a mixture of wood smoke, sweat, and that distinct human funk that comes from living without modern hygiene. I'm up, you mutter, though no one really cares about your complaints. Your mother is already awake, coaxing last night's embers back to life. This is perhaps the most important task of the morning. Without fire, you have no warmth, no cooked food, and honestly, little reason to live through a medieval February. Here, she says, handing you a chunk of dark bread. Eat. Hold up, let me paint you a picture of this bread. This isn't your fluffy sourdough from Whole Foods. This is a dense, hard lump made from barley and rye. Whatever grains survived the winter, it's coarse because it's been ground by hand, which means tiny bits of stone from the grinding process are mixed in. Free dental work, by which I mean it slowly wears your teeth down to nubs. The bread is your breakfast. That's it. Maybe there's some hard cheese if your family is doing well. Maybe there's nothing but the bread if you're not. You're lucky it's not famine season. During those times, this chunk might be divided between 3 people. You eat quickly because there's no time to waste. You can already hear the manor steward outside calling for workers. As a serf, you're legally bound to this land. You're not a slave. Technically, you can't be bought and sold as a person, but you're the next closest thing. You're sold with the land. You cannot leave. Your children will inherit your status. This is your life. Boots, your father says, pointing to the single pair of leather shoes the family shares for outside work. It must be your day to wear them. Your mother and sister will stay behind today, continuing the endless indoor work, carding wool, spinning, weaving, cooking, preserving and maintaining this glorious mud hut you call home. Outside, the February morning is cruel. A thin, icy rain falls, the kind that somehow feels colder than snow. The village is a collection of huts, similar to yours, smoke rising from holes in their roofs, all clustered together and surrounded by the vast open fields where you'll spend your day. The smell hits you the moment you step outside. Medieval villages don't have sewage systems. There's a midden heap, basically the community trash and toilet area, not far from the houses. In summer, the stench is ungodly. Winter brings the small mercy of freezing some of the odour. "You're late," the steward says, a man you neither like nor can afford to offend. He works for the lord who owns this manor, the land, the village, and effectively, you. "Sorry," you mutter, joining the line of other serfs. Everyone looks as tired and dirty as you feel. Today's task, clearing drainage ditches in the Lord's fields. This means standing ankle-deep in freezing water, digging through mud with wooden tools for hours. The work is mind-numbingly dull and physically exhausting. Your back will scream by midday. Your hands will bleed. Wait, I should explain something. In your head, you're probably thinking, I'd just run away. How would they even catch me? Right? I know, I've thought it too. But here's the thing. Where would you go? The next village over, they'd return you immediately. The forest? You'd die within days. Cities? They're tiny at this point, and you'd be an obvious outsider with no skills for urban life. Also, it's illegal to help runaway serfs. The punishment is severe. By mid-morning, your body is numb from the cold. Your stomach is already growling because that single piece of bread wasn't nearly enough calories for the work you're doing. But hunger is your constant companion, especially in the hungry gap. Late winter and early spring, when stored food runs low before new crops grow. "William's youngest died last night," whispers the man working beside you. His name is Edwin, and he's maybe 40, which makes him practically ancient in your world. His face is weathered, missing several teeth, and his hands are gnarled from decades of this same labour. "Fever?" you ask, though it could be any number of things. "Aye. Third child they've lost." You nod. Child mortality is so common that parents often don't name babies until they've survived their first year. About 1 in 3 won't make it to age 5. It's just the way of things. The conversation switches to more pressing matters. "Heard the Lord's adding another workday to our service," Edwin mutters, glancing around to make sure the steward isn't listening. As a serf, you owe your lord a set number of days working his land, called the domain, without pay. It's part of the deal for being protected and allowed to work a small strip of land for yourself. If the lord increases the required days, it means less time to grow food for your own family. Your stomach tightens with worry. Last year was already hard. Your family barely produced enough to feed themselves and pay the various taxes and tithes. The Lord gets a share. The church gets a share. The miller takes a portion to grind your grain. At every turn, someone is taking from what little you have. Around noon, there's a brief break. You sit on the damp ground, pulling out another small piece of bread. This is your lunch. No midday feast, no break room, no coffee run, just more bread, slightly more stale than breakfast. "You know what I heard," says a younger man named Watt, joining your small group. "Up north, in York, they say a man danced until he dropped dead, then 5 more started dancing, couldn't stop themselves." You've heard of this, the dancing plague. Nobody knows exactly what causes it, but most believe it's either demonic possession or divine punishment. Actually, it's probably ergot poisoning, a fungus that grows on rye in damp conditions. When consumed, it causes hallucinations, convulsions, and what looks like uncontrollable dancing. People can dance themselves to death from exhaustion. "God preserve us," Edwin mutters, making the sign of the cross. The thought of tainted grain adds another worry. Your family's stored rye needs to last until the new harvest. If it's contaminated, you might not know until the symptoms start. The Lord's steward is coming back around, ending your brief rest period. Back to work. Your hands are cracked and bleeding from the cold and wet. No gloves, of course. Those are a luxury. You wear rough wool clothing year-round. In summer, it's hot and itchy. In winter, if it gets wet, which it is now, it stays wet. Wet wool in freezing temperatures is its own special kind of torture. The day stretches endlessly. The sky is grey, the work is grey, your future is grey. There's no prospect of advancement, no medieval equivalent of a promotion or career change. You were born a serf, you'll die a serf. Your children will be serfs. This field, this village, this life, it's all you'll ever know, unless, of course, something worse happens. And speak of the devil. A horn sounds from the direction of the village. Everyone stops. That's not a normal sound. Horns mean trouble. Raiders? Someone whispers. The steward looks concerned for once. Back to the village, he orders. You feel a spike of fear. Raiders are rare this far inland, but not impossible. Vikings may have mostly settled down by now, but there are always threats. Outlaws, soldiers from conflicts between nobles, or even just hungry men from other struggling villages. As your group hurries back, you spot smoke. Not the normal cooking fire smoke, but larger, darker plumes. Something is burning in the village. Your throat tightens. Your mother and sister are there. Your home, your few possessions, your stored food, everything that stands between you and starvation. The men around you pick up pace, some breaking into runs despite their exhaustion. You do the same, heart pounding, legs burning with effort after the long morning of labour. The smoke gets thicker as you approach. When you crest the small hill overlooking your village, the scene stops you cold. 3 buildings are fully engulfed in flames. People are running, screaming. There are mounted men, at least a dozen, wearing the colours of a neighbouring lord. Not raiders, Edwin says grimly beside you. Worse, lord's conflict. You're caught in the middle of a dispute between nobles. Your lord has apparently angered another, who's decided to punish him by destroying his property. That property includes your village, your home, and you. One of the mounted men spots your group returning from the fields. He points, shouts something to his companions. 3 riders break off, heading in your direction. The steward, who moments ago was ordering you around, looks as terrified as you feel. "Run!" he shouts, and just like that, you're all running, not toward the village now, but away, toward the forest edge. You've never moved so fast in your life, adrenaline overriding the fatigue in your muscles. Behind you, hoofbeats grow louder. You reach the tree line just as an arrow thunks into a trunk beside you. The forest is technically the Lord's property too, his private hunting ground where serfs are forbidden. Right now, no one cares about that law. The dense undergrowth slows the horses. You keep running. Branches whipping your face, thorns tearing at your clothes. You can hear others crashing through the brush around you, but you've lost sight of everyone except Edwin, who somehow keeps pace despite his age. "This way," he hisses, veering left. You follow without question. The sounds of pursuit fade slightly. Edwin leads you to a small stream, then into it. "Walk in the water," he instructs. "Hides our trail." The icy water is agony on your already cold, wet feet, but you obey. Survival trumps comfort. You wade downstream for what feels like an eternity before Edwin finally signals to exit on the opposite bank. There, concealed in a dense thicket, you find others from your village, including, to your immense relief, your mother and sister. Your mother's face is streaked with soot, and your sister is quietly sobbing, but they're alive. "Our home?" you ask, already knowing the answer from their faces. Your mother shakes her head. "Gone. Everything." Reality sinks in. You've lost what little you had, your stored food, your few tools, the roof over your head. Winter isn't over. Without shelter and food, survival becomes questionable. Your father isn't among the group. No one's seen him. The waiting is unbearable as more villagers trickle into this makeshift forest refuge. Night begins to fall, bringing even colder temperatures. Without fire, too risky with the raiders possibly still searching, the cold becomes dangerous. People huddle together for warmth, sharing the few cloaks and blankets some manage to grab. Children whimper from hunger and fear. You curl up between your mother and sister, sharing body heat, wondering what happens next. The sound of someone approaching sends a jolt of fear through the group. Everyone freezes. Then a whispered voice. It's Oswald and John. We're bringing more. More villagers emerge from the darkness, including, at last, your father. His face is bloody, but he's moving under his own power. Your family embraces in silent relief. As you cling to each other in the freezing dark, you realize this is just the beginning of your hardships. Even if the raiders leave, you'll return to burned homes, possibly destroyed food stores, and fields that still need tending despite your personal catastrophe. The Lord will not reduce your obligations because of this attack, and yet somehow people survive. They rebuild, they endure. Medieval peasants were nothing if not resilient. They had to be. As the night deepens and your family presses together for warmth, you listen to the elders already making plans for rebuilding, for finding food, for survival. This isn't the first disaster they've weathered. It likely won't be the last. The cold seeps into your bones, hunger gnaws at your stomach, and fear of what tomorrow brings keeps your mind racing despite your exhaustion. This is just one day in the life of a medieval serf. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new hardships, and somehow you'll find the strength to face them. Because that's what your ancestors did. They survived against all odds in conditions that would break most modern humans within days. Their blood runs in your veins. Their strength is your inheritance. In the darkness of the forest, facing an uncertain future, you close your eyes. Survival means taking rest when you can get it, even on the cold, hard ground, huddled against your family for warmth. Dawn breaks through the trees, pale light filtering down to where you and the other villagers have spent the most miserable night of your lives. Your body aches from the cold ground. Your stomach feels hollow. The clothes you've been wearing for months are now not just dirty, but torn from your escape through the forest. They gone? Someone whispers. Nobody knows for sure. Your father volunteers to scout along with 3 other men. The waiting is torture. Children whimper from hunger and the adults have nothing to give them. The cold has seeped so deep into your bones that you wonder if you'll ever feel warm again. Edwin, the older man who helped you escape yesterday, sits nearby, his face grim. Had this happened once before, he says quietly. 15 years back, different lords quarrel. What did you do, you ask? He gives a bitter laugh. What could we do? Rebuilt, replanted, starved a bit. Life goes on until it doesn't. That's when you notice his hands, gnarled, scarred, with 2 fingers missing from his left. Frostbite, he explains, following your gaze. Bad winter after that raid. No proper shelter for months. Well, that's a cheerful thought. After what feels like forever, the scouts return. They've moved on, your father reports, though his relieved expression quickly fades. Village is, it's bad. The walk back is silent, everyone preparing themselves for what's coming. When you crest the hill overlooking your home, the scene is worse than you imagined. Half the village is simply gone, replaced by smoking ruins. The other half stands damaged but not completely destroyed. Your family home is among the total losses. Nothing remains but a blackened outline on the ground and a few charred timbers. The livestock, your precious pig, the chickens, the goat, all gone, either stolen or burned alive. Jesus, someone mutters behind you. An appropriate prayer. given the circumstances. The village church, a modest wooden structure, somehow survived mostly intact. The priest, Father Ethelred, stands in the doorway, his robes filthy. He looks as shell-shocked as everyone else. "The Lord tests us," he begins as villagers gather. His voice wavers. Even he doesn't seem convinced by his own words. Reality sinks in quickly. This isn't just about losing your homes. Your food stores are gone. The seeds saved for spring planting, gone. Tools, clothing, everything needed for survival, gone. And it's still February, the hunger month in normal years. This is about as far from normal as it gets. The steward arrives from the manor house, the lord's residence situated about a mile away on higher ground. Of course, it wasn't touched by the raid. "The Lord offers his condolences," the steward announces, looking uncomfortable. A murmur runs through the crowd. Condolences don't rebuild houses or fill empty bellies. "He requires workers at the manor tomorrow," the steward continues. "Regular duties must continue." This statement is met with stunned silence. Your homes are destroyed and the Lord expects work to continue as normal? Edwin steps forward, his weathered face creased with barely controlled anger. "We've lost everything. Our families need shelter, food." The steward shifts his weight, clearly the messenger who doesn't want to be killed for his message. "The Lord says those who work will receive a meal, and permission to use timber from the edge of his forest for rebuilding. Not freely given timber, mind you, just permission to cut it yourself after a full day's work. How generous." Your father joins Edwin. "Ask him for grain, from his stores, just enough to keep us alive until I will convey your request." The steward cuts him off. "Those who wish to eat tomorrow will report for work at dawn." With that, he turns and leaves. The reality of feudalism hits you right in the face. The Lord is obligated to provide protection, yes, but he clearly failed at that. Still, you remain obligated to him. The relationship only works in one direction when it really matters. "All right," your father says, turning to your mother and sister. "We need shelter first." The next hours are a blur of desperate activity. With your home destroyed, your family joins forces with your cousins whose house was damaged but still has half a wall standing. Together you scavenge through the ruins for anything usable. A bent cooking pot, a partially burned wooden bowl, a handful of nails that can be straightened and reused. You've never truly appreciated how little you owned until you're picking through its ashes. The immediate goal: create some kind of shelter before nightfall, without tools, without materials, with only bare hands and desperation. Your uncle had been a woodworker, not a formal profession, just a skill he'd developed. He directs the efforts to salvage timber from the ruins and forest edge. "Don't touch that yet," he warns as a young man tries to move a charred beam, still hot underneath. "You'll burn yourself." The smell is overwhelming. Burnt wood, burnt thatch, and worse scents you try to ignore. Was that a person's home or their grave? In some cases, it's both. By midday, your stomach is screaming with hunger. The physical labor of digging through ruins and dragging salvaged materials makes it worse. Your mother has been searching for anything edible in the forest edge and returns with a small handful of winter nuts and some kind of roots. "Not much," she says apologetically, dividing the pitiful findings among your family. "The nuts are hard and bitter. The roots taste like dirt but might have some nutritional value. It does almost nothing to ease the hunger. Some of the men are going to try fishing," your father says. The nearby stream might yield something, though winter fishing is rarely productive. The makeshift shelter takes shape slowly, a lopsided lean-to constructed of salvaged timbers and branches covered with whatever will keep out the elements, scraps of undamaged thatch, tree boughs, even dirt packed over sticks. It's more like an animal den than a human dwelling, but it will provide minimal protection from wind and rain. As you work, you notice blood on your hands from where blisters have formed and broken. There's no time to care about that. Pain is just another constant companion, like hunger. By late afternoon, more villagers straggle back from the forest where they'd hidden. Some bring meagre, foraged foods. One man managed to snare a rabbit, a prize that causes actual cheering. It's a pitiful amount for so many, but something. "What now?" your sister asks as your family huddles in the half-finished shelter, the day's light fading. She's 14, old enough to understand the direness of your situation, young enough to still look to adults for answers they don't have. Your father stares at his bloody hands. "Tomorrow we work. We eat the Lord's food. We start rebuilding. And if there's not enough food," she persists. Your mother shoots her a warning look. Some fears are better left unspoken. That night is another exercise in misery. The lean-to keeps off the worst of the wind, but does little for warmth. Your family sleeps huddled together on the bare ground, covered with the single blanket someone salvaged. Sleep comes in fitful bursts, interrupted by cold, discomfort, and the sounds of others suffering around you. Morning arrives with frost coating the ground. You can see your breath inside the shelter. Everything hurts from sleeping on the hard earth, and your empty stomach has given up growling and settled into a dull, persistent ache. Still, at dawn, most able-bodied villagers report for work at the manor as ordered. The promise of food is too powerful to ignore. Your father goes. You go too, deemed old enough for a full day's labour. The manor house sits on a rise overlooking the village and surrounding fields. It's a timber structure, far larger and sturdier than the peasant homes below. Smoke rises from multiple hearths inside. The smell of cooking food reaches you even at the gate, making your mouth water painfully. The steward divides workers into groups. Some will repair a section of the Lord's fence that's rotting, others will clear drainage ditches, your task from yesterday apparently still a priority despite your village being in ashes. A third group will help in the manor's brewery, where ale is being prepared. You're assigned to the drainage crew again. Another day of standing in freezing water. At least the promised meal keeps hope alive. The work is even harder today, weakened as you are by hunger and poor sleep. Your muscles scream with each shovelful of mud. The man working next to you isn't Edwin, but a younger villager named Watt. "Heard anything from the other side of the village?" you ask him during a brief pause. His family lived, on the far end. Watt shakes his head grimly. "My cousin's baby died in the night. Cold, probably." Just another casualty that won't make any history books. Medieval life continues, brutal in its indifference. Midday brings the promised meal. A bowl of pottage, a thick soup, and a chunk of bread for each worker. It's basic fare, but after nearly 2 days without real food, it tastes miraculous. You eat slowly, savouring each bite, knowing it needs to fuel hours more labour. The conversation among the workers is subdued, focused on immediate concerns. Who has extra space in their shelter? Who might have tools to share? Who needs help digging out their stored root vegetables if they weren't destroyed? Church roof needs repair, someone mentions. Father says we should make that a priority. A few men snort at this. God's house can wait when human dwellings are gone, but the church is also the village's communal building, its storeroom, its heart. There's practical value beyond the religious aspect. Thomas's boy has the cough, another man says quietly. Everyone grows silent at this. The cough could mean many things, none good. In winter, respiratory illnesses spread quickly and can be deadly, especially to the young and old. "My grandmother knows a remedy," offers a young man. "Boiled horehound and honey." "Where's honey coming from?" someone scoffs. "Raiders took everything." "Wild hives?" the young man insists. "I know where to find them. In February, with snow still on the ground. Good luck, lad." The conversation illustrates a harsh reality. Medical care in your time consists primarily of herbal remedies of questionable effectiveness, most unavailable in winter anyway. Prayer is the other option. Neither seems particularly reliable. After the meal, it's back to work until sunset. By the time you're released to return to the village, your body feels twice its age. Every muscle aches, your hands are torn and bleeding, but your stomach is no longer completely empty, and you have permission to cut timber tomorrow after work. Plus, you've managed to secret away a small portion of your bread tucked inside your tunic to bring back to your mother and sister. Many others have done the same, the Lord's generosity redistributed through sleight of hand. The village looks different when you return. Signs of progress amid the devastation. Some makeshift shelters have improved. A communal cooking fire burns in what was once the village centre. People have organised themselves, as they always do, in crisis. You find your mother helping tend that fire, your sister gathering water from the stream. The small piece of bread you smuggled out is accepted with tears of gratitude and divided carefully. That night, more villagers crowd into your family's makeshift shelter. Body heat becomes precious. Personal space becomes irrelevant. You sleep sandwiched between your sister and a neighbour's teenage son, while your parents share the space with the neighbour couple. "Like old Simeon's inn," jokes the neighbour man, referring to the biblical story of no room at the inn, except we're all the animals. The weak laughter this earns feels like a victory. Humour, however dark, means spirits aren't completely broken. Sleep comes easier tonight, despite the crowding. Exhaustion trumps discomfort. Tomorrow will bring more of the same. Work, scavenging, rebuilding. The day after that, the same again. This is how you survive catastrophe in medieval England. One day at a time, one meal when you can get it, work that never ends, and the knowledge that eventually things might improve, at least until the next disaster strikes. As you drift off, pressed between bodies for warmth, you think about the cycles of peasant life. Spring will come, bringing planting season and more food, but also new kinds of labour. Summer means crops to tend constantly. Autumn brings harvest and taxes. Winter means cold and scarcity. Each season has its challenges, its rhythms, its specific ways to kill you if you're not careful or lucky. But humans are adaptable. Your medieval ancestors, the ones whose blood runs in your veins, survived these conditions. They rebuilt after disasters. They worked fields until their hands bled, ate food that barely qualified as nutrition, lived in homes that modern humans would consider unfit for animals, and somehow they endured. In your almost sleep, you hear whispered conversations around you, plans for tomorrow. Who will search for more food? Who will care for the orphaned children? Who will begin rebuilding the church? The community organises itself as it has countless times before. Medieval village life wasn't just about individual survival, it was about collective resilience. No single person could make it alone. You needed your neighbours as much as they needed you. For all the hardship, there was a certain security in that interdependence that modern life rarely captures. The last thing you hear before sleep finally claims you as your father's whispered voice to your mother. "We'll be all right, we always are." Against all odds, he might even be right. Days blur into weeks. Late February becomes early March. The work never stops, labouring for the Lord by day, rebuilding your own lives by night. Somehow your village begins to take shape again, though shape is a generous description for the hodgepodge of shelters rising from the ashes. Your family's new home is nothing like the old one. It's smaller, cruder, built with green wood that warps and shrinks as it dries. The walls have gaps you stuff with moss and mud. The roof leaks when it rains, which it does constantly because, well, England. At least it's something your mother says, trying to sound positive as water drips onto her shoulder. The weather is changing, though. Subtle shifts that only farmers notice. The quality of light, the smell of the air, the slightly later sunset. Spring approaches, bringing both relief and new challenges. Relief because winter's deadly cold will ease. Challenge because now begins the most critical period of the agricultural year, planting. Get it wrong and people starve come autumn. But first, there's Lent, 40 days of religious fasting before Easter, because medieval life wasn't hard enough already. The church mandates no meat, no dairy, no eggs. Basically, your already limited diet becomes even more restricted. Father Ethelred looks uncomfortable announcing this at Sunday Mass in the half-repaired church. Even he recognises the absurdity, people already starving being told to fast. Given our circumstances, he says carefully, certain allowances may be made for the youngest and oldest among us. This is his way of bending the rules without directly contradicting the church. Church is where you learn that the raid wasn't isolated. 3 other villages suffered similar fates, a petty war between lords that peasants pay for with their lives. Did our Lord win at least? Someone asks bitterly. The priest purses his lips. The conflict continues. Great. So it could happen again. After Mass, the village gathers for the weekly meeting. These have become essential for coordinating rebuilding efforts. The village reeve, a peasant elected to manage community affairs, stands before the crowd. Planting begins next week, he announces. We need to take inventory of seed. A grim silence follows. Most families lost their seed grain in the fires. Without seeds, there's nothing to plant. Without planting, there's no harvest. Without harvest, well, you can do the math. Edwin speaks up. The monastery at Glaston might help. They've aided villages before. It's 3 days' walk, someone points out. I'll go, volunteers a man named Cedric. Others join him. A delegation will travel to the monastery to beg for seed grain. It's a long shot, but desperation breeds boldness. Talk turns to immediate concerns. Thomas's son, the boy with the cough, has gotten worse. Several others now show similar symptoms. Illness spreads fast when people are crammed together in inadequate shelter with poor nutrition. Your mother, who knows something about herbal remedies, offers to help. I found wild garlic near the stream, she says, and there's still some dried yarrow from last summer. The gathering breaks up as rain begins to fall again. Your family hurries to your leaky shelter, where your father immediately gets to work trying to improve the roof. The next morning brings something you haven't seen in months. Sunshine. Weak, watery English sunshine, but still, the psychological effect is immediate. People emerge from shelters with something close to hope on their faces. Your mother takes advantage of the weather to tackle the monumental task of laundry. In your modern life, you probably don't think much about doing laundry. In medieval England, it's practically an Olympic event. First, she builds a fire to heat water in your salvaged cooking pot. While that's happening, she makes lye soap by filtering water through saved wood ashes. The resulting solution is caustic enough to burn skin, but effective at cutting through months of accumulated grime. Your sister helps, pounding the wet clothes with a wooden paddle. The work is exhausting. No washing machines, no dryers, not even running water. Everything done by hand using homemade soap that's basically one step away from being a chemical weapon. These might actually be clean, your sister says with wonder, hanging sodden tunics on branches to dry. Or they'll dissolve completely, your mother replies with a rare smile. While they handle laundry, you and your father join other men working on a new communal project, a proper oven. Individual families can't afford separate ovens, so villages share one or two. Without it, bread must be cooked in the fire, yielding poor results. The oven is clay and stone, built with techniques passed down through generations. It's backbreaking work, hauling stones from the stream and clay from the riverbank, but the result will benefit everyone. Midday brings news. The first returning members of the delegation to the monastery. Their faces tell the story before words do. The journey was successful. The monks provided seed grain, enough for essential crops. They're sending a cart, Cedric explains. Too much to carry back on foot. A cheer goes up from the gathered villagers. It's the first genuine celebration since the raid. This single act of charity might mean the difference between life and death for the entire community. The monastery's generosity isn't entirely selfless. Religious institutions and peasant communities exist in a symbiotic relationship. The monastery needs functioning villages as much as villages sometimes need the monastery's help. Still, in this moment, it feels like divine intervention. As the day continues, you notice your sister moving more slowly, her face flushed despite the cool air. "Are you well?" you ask her. "Just tired," she insists, but her voice sounds strange. By evening, she's burning with fever, her breathing laboured. The cough that took Thomas's son has found your family. Your mother looks grim as she places a cool cloth on your sister's forehead. "We need to bring her fever down." This is the moment you truly understand medieval medicine, or rather the lack of it. No antibiotics, no hospitals, not even a proper understanding of what causes disease. Your sister's life hangs in the balance, with only folk remedies and prayer standing between her and death. Your mother sends you to gather more wild garlic and to ask neighbours for any herbs they might have. One elderly woman provides dried feverfew. Another offers honey, precious as gold in late winter. The night is long and frightening. Your sister alternates between shivering with chills and burning with fever. Your mother doesn't sleep, constantly adjusting remedies, spooning herbal teas and honey mixtures between your sister's cracked lips. Your father sits helplessly nearby. For all his strength in the fields, he can do nothing here except occasionally fetch water or stoke the fire. By morning, your sister seems marginally better. Her fever hasn't broken, but it hasn't risen either. Your mother looks exhausted but relieved. "Go to work," she tells you and your father. "I'll tend to her. The Lord's fields won't plough themselves after all. The recent disaster hasn't changed the fundamental rhythm of medieval life or the demands of feudal obligation." Today's task is preparing fields for planting, breaking up soil that's been fallow over winter. The work is done with wooden ploughs pulled by oxen, if a village is fortunate enough to have them. Your village lost most livestock in the raid, so much of the work must be done by hand using mattocks. Back-breaking alternative that's painfully slow. "My wife's sick too," says Watt as you work side by side. "Same cough." You nod grimly. "My sister." No further words are needed. Everyone understands the threat. In close-packed villages with poor sanitation and weakened populations, disease spreads like fire. Medieval people don't understand germ theory, but they recognize patterns. "Father Ethelred is blessing houses tonight," Watt adds. "For what it's worth." Religion and medicine blur together in your world. Illness might be treated with herbs, but it's also addressed with prayers, blessings, and sometimes exorcisms. The line between natural and supernatural is thin, almost non-existent. Midday brings surprising news. The steward approaches the working men with an unusual announcement. The Lord requests 3 men to help with preparations for a judicial proceeding tomorrow. This catches everyone's attention. Courts are rare events, usually held a few times yearly for the entire manor. For one to be called now suggests something significant. "What manner of proceeding?" asks the reeve cautiously. The steward looks uncomfortable. "A man from Westfield is accused of stealing the Lord's grain during the confusion after the raids." Westfield is a neighbouring village that suffered similar attacks. The accused man's alleged crime is understandable, if true. Starving people make desperate choices. Your father volunteers along with 2 others. The work will be less physically demanding than field preparation, and it comes with the promise of food at the manor house. That evening you return to find your sister's condition unchanged, neither better nor worse. In medieval medicine, this is actually a victory. Your mother looks ready to collapse from exhaustion. Father Ethelred visits as promised, bringing a small vial of holy water to bless your shelter and its occupants. The ritual provides comfort, if not cure. He speaks quiet words to your mother, offering spiritual reassurance. After he leaves, your mother reveals what else the priest shared. News too sensitive for open discussion. The accused man from Westfield, she whispers. They say he'll face the ordeal. Your blood runs cold at these words. Trial by ordeal is exactly as terrible as it sounds. Unable to determine guilt through evidence or testimony alone, medieval courts sometimes turned to divine judgment. Physical tests believed to reveal God's verdict. Which ordeal? Your father asks grimly. Hot iron. The ordeal of hot iron requires the accused to carry a red-hot iron bar for a specified distance. Afterward, the hand is bandaged. When unwrapped days later, the state of the burn supposedly reveals guilt or innocence. Clean healing indicates innocence. Infection suggests guilt. It's barbaric, painful, and completely unreliable as a determinant of actual guilt. But it's how justice sometimes works in your world. Morning brings the arrival of the seed grain from the monastery, a cart laden with precious sacks of barley, rye, and peas. The village reeve oversees its division among families according to their land holdings and needs. Your father isn't present for this distribution, having gone to assist at the manor for the judicial proceeding. Your mother sends you in his place, trusting you to represent family interests. The division is tense but orderly. Everyone knows what's at stake. Arguments break out occasionally over who deserves what portion, but the reeve manages the process with firm authority. Your family receives enough seed for your strips of land, less than you'd have planted in a normal year, but enough to provide hope for some harvest. As you're securing your precious sacks to carry home, Edwin approaches. Your sister, he says quietly. How fares she? No worse, you reply. Perhaps a little better. He nods, then reaches into his tunic and pulls out a small cloth bundle. For her, my wife saved these from our herb garden. Inside are dried leaves you recognize as sage, known for treating coughs and fevers. It's a generous gift from a family that has little to spare. Thank you, you say, genuinely moved. Why? Your father helped rebuild our shelter when my back was too pained to work, he explains simply. We help each other, it's how we survive. This small exchange captures something essential about medieval village life. In a world without social safety nets, without insurance or government assistance, the community itself is the safety net. Neighbours help neighbours not just from kindness, but from necessity. Today you need help, tomorrow you'll provide it. You return home to find your sister sitting up, taking broth from your mother's hand. Her fever has broken. She's weak, her cough still present but less severe. She'll recover, barring complications. The relief is overwhelming. In a time when every illness carries the shadow of death, recovery feels miraculous. Your father returns at dusk, his expression troubled. The judicial proceeding went as expected. The accused man, protesting his innocence, underwent the ordeal of hot iron. The results won't be known for 3 days when his bandages are removed. But they found grain in his home, your father says quietly. Matches what was stored at the manor. Was he stealing, you ask? Your father shrugs. Maybe, or maybe he got it elsewhere. Hard to tell one grain from another. The implication is clear. The man's guilt is uncertain, but his punishment is assured. His hand is now horrifically burned, and if infection sets in, as it likely will, he may lose it entirely. Justice in medieval England is swift, painful, and often arbitrary. The conversation shifts to more immediate concerns. Tomorrow begins the intensive work of planting, probably the most important task of the entire year. Every able-bodied person will participate, including children old enough to help. Despite exhaustion, despite illness, despite the trauma of recent events, planting cannot be delayed. The growing season in England is short. Miss the window and winter will find you with empty storerooms. As darkness falls completely, your family shares a meagre meal of pottage, a thick soup made with whatever vegetables could be found, stretched with barley from your day's allotment. It's filling, if not particularly nutritious or tasty. Talk turns to plans for improving your shelter when time allows. A proper roof, real walls, maybe even a separate area for sleeping, though that's an ambitious goal. These modest aspirations highlight the grinding poverty of medieval peasant life. The things you hope for are named that doesn't leak. Walls without drafts would be considered uninhabitable by modern standards. Yet they represent progress, improvement, something to strive for. Your sister falls asleep early, her body demanding rest to heal. Your parents soon follow, exhausted from work and worry. You remain awake a little longer, listening to the sounds of the village settling for the night. Somewhere a baby cries, a dog barks, low conversations drift from nearby shelters. Despite everything, life continues. People adapt, they rebuild, they plant seeds and hope for harvest. The resilience is remarkable. Where modern humans might despair, your medieval counterparts simply endure. They lack alternatives, perhaps, but there's also a wisdom in their acceptance of hardship as part of life's fabric. As sleep finally claims you, your thoughts drift to tomorrow's planting, the work that will determine whether your family eats or starves 6 months from now. Every day matters, every decision has consequences. And yet, for all its harshness, there's a clarity to this existence, a directness. Work, eat, sleep, survive. Repeat until you can't anymore. Medieval life strips away pretense and leaves only the essential. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but tonight your sister breathes easier, seeds wait to be planted, and your crude shelter keeps off at least some of the rain. By medieval standards, things could be much worse. Morning comes earlier now, not just because days are lengthening with spring's approach, but because planting season demands every hour of daylight. Your family rises before dawn, chewing on cold bread left from the night before as you head to the fields. Medieval farming isn't just hard work, it's an intricate dance with nature that your ancestors have perfected over generations. You can't just throw seeds anywhere and hope. The timing, the method, the arrangement, everything matters. The village fields are divided into strips, with families assigned different sections in a complex rotation system. This ensures no one gets stuck with only the worst land year after year. It's surprisingly egalitarian for a society otherwise defined by rigid hierarchy. We plant the rye here, your father explains, showing you a section of field. Barley there, peas at the far end where the soil's richer. The 3-field system is in use, one field planted with winter crops, one with spring crops, and one left fallow to recover nutrients. It's a sustainable practice developed through centuries of trial and error. Watching the whole village work together is kind of impressive, actually. Men break the ground with ploughs where available or mattocks where not. Women follow, dropping seeds with practiced precision. Children help by chasing away birds that would feast on the newly sown fields. Not too deep, an older woman corrects your sister who's helping with planting despite her recent illness. Seeds need to breathe. There's a precision to this work that outsiders wouldn't appreciate. Medieval peasants may not have formal education, but they possess generations of accumulated agricultural knowledge. They know their soil, their climate, their crops. Midday brings a brief rest. People share what food they have, mostly bread and perhaps a bit of hard cheese. You notice a girl about your age sitting slightly apart from others. Her name is Eliza, daughter of a family from the far side of the village. Her father died in the raid. "The birds are worse this year," she says when you sit nearby. "Everything's worse this year," you reply. She gives a small smile at that. True enough. Conversations like this, brief exchanges during work, comprise most of the social interaction between unmarried young people in your world. No dating, no parties, no social media, just moments stolen between endless labour. The afternoon brings a visit from the steward, watching the planting progress with critical eyes. The Lord's interest is clear. Peasant fields produce food, but they also produce the Lord's income through various taxes and tithes. "The south field needs finishing today," he announces. No one argues, though the sun is already past its peak, and everyone has been working since dawn. As planting continues, you overhear snippets of conversation that paint a picture of village concerns. "We'll need new thatch before autumn rains." The miller's charging more for grinding, says his wheel needs repair. Mary's eldest is leaving for town, apprenticed to a leather worker. "The Westfield man's bandages come off tomorrow, God help him." This last comment draws your attention back to the judicial ordeal you learned about yesterday. Tomorrow determines whether the accused thief is deemed innocent or guilty based on how his burned hand has healed. "What happens if he's found guilty?" you ask your father quietly. "Depends on the Lord's mood," he replies grimly. "Could be a fine he can't pay, could be losing the hand completely, could be hanging." Medieval justice isn't just harsh, it's wildly inconsistent. The same crime might result in a minor punishment or death depending on who you are, who you offended, and the whims of those in power. As the sun begins to set, the steward finally allows work to end. Your family trudges home, filthy and exhausted. Every muscle aches from constant bending, lifting, and carrying. Yet there's still work to be done before sleep. Your mother uses the last daylight to check your sister's foraging haul. Early spring greens like nettles, dandelions, and wild garlic. These plants, which modern folks might consider weeds, are precious additions to the medieval diet, especially after winter when fresh food is scarce. "Good," she approves. "The nettles will help your sister regain strength." Stinging nettles, handled with care and cooked properly, are surprisingly nutritious, rich in iron and vitamins. Medieval people may not understand nutrition science, but they know through experience which plants help heal and strengthen the body. Dinner is nettle soup with barley, more flavourful than yesterday's pottage thanks to the foraged greens and wild garlic. As you eat, your father discusses tomorrow's work. More planting, of course. The good weather can't be wasted. "We need to repair fishing nets too," he adds. "Streams running high with spring melt, good time for catching. Every food source matters now. The monastery's seed grain saved you from starvation, but it's barely enough for planting. Very little remains for eating. Until harvest, you'll survive on whatever can be foraged, caught, or purchased with what little coin your family might scrape together." Night has fully fallen now. unlike in your modern life, darkness is nearly complete. No streetlights, no electronics, not even candles in most peasant homes. Candles are expensive luxuries made from beeswax or tallow, animal fat. Your family, like most, relies primarily on the hearth fire for light. This means that, practically speaking, people sleep when it's dark and wake when it's light. Your body's rhythms sync with the sun out of necessity. As your family prepares for sleep, a commotion outside draws attention. Voices shouting. Your father moves to the door. "What's happening?" your mother asks. "Fire," he says, his voice tight with fear. At the edge of the village, fire, the eternal terror of medieval communities. Wooden buildings, thatch roofs, open flames for cooking and heating. It's a disaster waiting to happen. And when it does, there's no fire department to call. Your family rushes outside along with everyone else. In the distance, orange flames illuminate the night. It's the miller's house and mill at the village edge near the stream. "Buckets," someone shouts. "Form a line to the stream." The entire village mobilizes instantly. Even children join the bucket chain, passing water from hand to combat the flames. It's the only firefighting method available. Human chains and desperate effort. You find yourself between Eliza and an older man, passing heavy wooden buckets so quickly your arms burn with effort. The heat from the fire grows intense as you get closer. Sparks float dangerously on the night air, threatening to spread the fire to nearby structures. "The mill wheel!" someone shouts. "Save the wheel!" The wooden water wheel is the heart of the mill, essential for grinding grain. Without it, the village has no easy way to process wheat and barley into flour. Its loss would be catastrophic. Men with wet blankets rush dangerously close to the flames, beating at the fire where it threatens the wheel mechanism. Women and children keep the bucket line moving. The village priest stands slightly apart, lips moving in fervent prayer. For 2 exhausting hours, the battle continues. Finally, the flames begin to recede. The mill structure is mostly gone, but miraculously, the water wheel remains intact. The miller's family made it out safely, though they've lost everything else. As the immediate danger passes, people begin speculating about the fire's cause. A stray ember, a knocked-over lamp, then a troubling rumour spreads. "It wasn't accident," an old woman whispers. "The miller raised his grinding prices. Someone did this." The accusation sends a chill through the crowd. Arson is a deadly serious crime in a world where one fire can destroy an entire community. If true, this is no longer just a tragedy, but a deliberate attack on village welfare. "Nonsense," the reeve says firmly. "Who among us would do such a thing? We all need the mill." His words calm the immediate tension, but suspicion lingers. Hard times bring out both the best and worst in people. You've seen incredible generosity since the raid, families sharing what little they have, working together to rebuild. But desperation can also turn neighbours against each other. It's well past midnight when your family finally returns to your shelter. Despite bone-deep exhaustion from the day's planting, followed by firefighting, sleep doesn't come easily. The smell of smoke clings to your clothes and hair, and your mind races with the evening's events. "Will the mill work again soon?" you ask in the darkness. "The wheel's intact," your father answers. "The miller can rebuild the housing. We'll help him. No choice, really." Another community project, another demand on time and energy already stretched to breaking. But he's right. There's no choice. Without the mill, grain can't become flour. Without flour, there's no bread. Without bread, well, you know how that ends. Morning comes too soon, the sky barely lightening when your father wakes you. Your body protests every movement, muscles stiff from yesterday's labour and the night's firefighting. But the fields won't plant themselves and time lost can't be recovered. Breakfast is more meagre than usual, the last of yesterday's bread with a thin broth. Your mother looks worried as she portions it out, though she says nothing. Food stores are running dangerously low, even with careful rationing. "I'll try fishing after planting," your father promises, noticing her concern. At the fields, conversation focuses on last night's fire and the miller's plans. He's already salvaging what he can, determined to have the mill functioning within days. Several men have volunteered to help rebuild after today's planting. Work resumes where it left off yesterday, everyone pushing through exhaustion to get seeds in the ground. The weather remains favourable, cool but not freezing, with light cloud cover preventing the soil from drying too quickly. Midday brings unexpected visitors. The steward again, but this time accompanied by 2 armed men wearing the Lord's colours. Their presence immediately puts everyone on edge. "The Lord requires workers for road repair," the steward announces. 5 men, 3 days' work. A murmur of dismay runs through the gathered peasants. 3 days away from planting and rebuilding could be disastrous, but refusing the Lord's demand isn't an option. "The road washed out near Westcross," the steward continues. "The Lord's supplies can't get through." Of course, this is about the Lord's convenience, not village welfare. The road in question leads to the nearest market town, vital for commerce but used primarily by merchants and nobility. Peasants rarely travel so far. The reeve reluctantly selects 5 men, trying to choose those whose family fields are already mostly planted. Your father isn't among them, thankfully. The chosen men look resigned rather than angry. This is simply how the system works. The Lord commands, peasants obey. As the armed men lead the selected workers away, you notice Eliza watching with a strange expression. "My uncle's among them," she explains when she catches your eye. "He has 3 young children and a wife. Who will finish his planting?" The question isn't rhetorical. In medieval village life, when someone can't complete essential work, others must step in, not from charity, but from necessity. The entire community depends on each field producing food. "We'll help," you find yourself saying. "My family can spare time." She looks surprised, then grateful. "We'd do the same for you." It's not an empty promise. This reciprocal assistance is how villages survive. Today, her uncle needs help. Tomorrow, your family might. No formal arrangements, no contracts, just the understood obligation to support the community that supports you. The afternoon brings news about the Westfield man who underwent ordeal by hot iron. His bandages were removed, revealing what everyone expected, an infected wound. In the logic of the ordeal, this proves his guilt. "They're taking his right hand," reports a man who witnessed the proceedings. "The Lord showed mercy. Could have been hanging." The matter-of-fact way he delivers this horrific information highlights how normalized such brutality is in your world. Amputation without anesthesia or proper medical care, likely infection afterward, possible death, all for stealing food while starving. "At least he lives," someone comments. No one argues. As planting continues, the conversation shifts to more immediate concerns. Weather predictions, seed quality, plans for rebuilding the mill. Life moves on because it must. Late afternoon brings one small victory. Your father catches 3 decent-sized fish in the stream. Not enough to feed the village, but enough to add precious protein to your family's evening meal. Your mother's face brightens at the sight. "We'll smoke what we don't eat tonight," she decides. "Make it last longer." Food preservation is a constant concern in a world without refrigeration. Smoking, drying, salting, pickling, these techniques aren't just cooking methods but survival strategies. Nothing can be wasted when scarcity is the norm. That evening, as your family enjoys fish soup enriched with wild greens, talk turns to the upcoming religious festival, Easter. In medieval England, church holidays provide rare breaks from labour and opportunities for community celebration. Father Ethelred says we should finish the church repairs before Holy Week, your mother mentions. Despite everything else demanding attention, planting, rebuilding homes, repairing the mill, the church remains a priority, not just for spiritual reasons, but practical ones. The church building serves as meeting place, storage facility, and ceremonial centre. It's the heart of village social life. We'll need to make our confession soon, your father adds. Annual confession is required before Easter Communion, another religious obligation taken seriously in your world. As darkness falls, you help your sister prepare materials for rushlights, simple illumination made by dipping dried pith from rushes in animal fat. Not as good as proper candles, but better than nothing when tasks need completing after sunset. Working by this modest light, your mother mends clothing torn during the day's labour, while your father repairs a wooden tool handle. No one sits idle if they can help it. Every moment can be productive when survival depends on it. The fire burns low as bedtime approaches. Unlike your modern home with its thermostat, medieval temperature control consists of adding wood to the fire or putting on another layer of clothing. Tonight, wood conservation wins. You'll sleep slightly cold to save fuel. As your family settles for the night, huddled together on straw pallets for warmth, your father speaks quietly about tomorrow's plans. More planting, of course, help for Eliza's family, continued rebuilding. The simple rhythm of medieval life continues. Wake, work, eat what you can find, sleep, repeat. Days structured by sunlight and seasons rather than clocks and calendars. Priorities dictated by immediate survival needs rather than ambition or entertainment. There's a certain clarity to this existence that modern life rarely offers. Each day brings tangible accomplishments, seeds planted, shelters improved, food gathered, progress measured in direct physical terms rather than abstract achievements. As sleep approaches, your mind drifts to today's small victories. Seeds in the ground, fish in the pot, the mill wheel saved from fire, your sister's continued recovery. In a world where survival isn't guaranteed, these modest successes deserve recognition. Outside, an owl calls somewhere in the darkness. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. It always does, but tonight your family is together, fed and sheltered. By medieval standards, that's about as good as it gets. Days blend into a rhythm as spring fully arrives. The village transforms, not just from rebuilding, but from nature's renewal. Bare trees sprout tender green leaves, the muddy ground firms underfoot, birdsong fills the morning air. With planting finished, attention shifts to other essential tasks. The mill reconstruction is a priority. Without it, grain can't become flour, and flour is the backbone of your diet. A dozen men work on the structure daily, raising new timber frames where the old building stood. The miller watches anxiously. His entire livelihood depends on this reconstruction, but he's not just concerned about himself. Need it running before first harvest, he keeps saying. Can't have grain spoiling for lack of grinding. You're helping carry stones for the mill foundation when you overhear an argument between the miller and the village reeve. 2 measures per sack is highway robbery, the reeve says firmly. I lost everything, the miller counters. How else will I recover? They're arguing about the miller's fee, the portion of grain he keeps as payment for grinding. Traditionally, it's been 1 measure per sack. Doubling it would significantly impact every family's food supply. 1.5 measures, the reeve finally offers, just until Michaelmas. The miller reluctantly agrees. It's a classic example of medieval economics. No money changes hands, but goods and services are carefully negotiated. The outcome affects everyone's survival. At home, your mother and sister work on their own crucial project, the garden plot. Every peasant family maintains a small garden near their dwelling for growing vegetables and herbs. With the recent destruction and rebuilding, these plots need complete restoration. "The beans go here," your mother instructs, marking sections with sticks. "Cabbages there, leeks along that side." These garden vegetables won't be ready for months, but planning happens now. Unlike the open fields where grains grow, these garden plots are the domain of women, providing crucial dietary variety through the growing season. Your sister looks healthier now, though still thin. Everyone is thin. The period between planting and first harvest is traditionally called the hungry gap, stored food running out before new crops are ready. This year, with winter stores destroyed in the raid, the gap is more like a chasm. "Look what I found," your sister exclaims suddenly, holding up a clutch of tiny eggs from a ground-nesting bird. 6 small speckled orbs rest in her palm, a precious protein source. "Good eyes," your mother praises. "We'll have them with dinner." Small windfalls like this can make the difference between mere hunger and actual starvation. Medieval peasants develop sharp eyes for foraging opportunities. Wild greens, mushrooms, berries, nuts, bird eggs, anything to supplement meagre rations. That afternoon, you join a group heading to the forest edge. Officially, you're gathering firewood, always in demand and depleted by the reconstruction efforts. Unofficially, you're hoping to snare a rabbit or collect early mushrooms. The forest itself is technically the Lord's property and hunting is forbidden to peasants, but gathering deadwood is permitted, and if a rabbit happens to blunder into a snare while you're collecting sticks, well, accidents happen. Edwin, the older man who helped during the raid, shows younger villagers how to set simple snares using twine and flexible branches. Check them at dawn, he advises, and don't get caught by the forester. The Lord's Forester patrols woodland, enforcing rules against poaching. Punishment for hunting the Lord's deer can be severe, blinding or maiming in extreme cases. Nobody risks taking deer, but small game like rabbits and squirrels are worth the gamble when families are hungry. While gathering wood, you notice Eliza working nearby. Since helping with her uncle's planting, you've spoken more frequently. There's no formal courting process for peasants, no dating as modern people understand it. Relationships develop through working together. Village gatherings, and stolen conversations like this. "My mother says the first strawberries are showing flowers," she mentions. "Early this year." "Good sign," you reply. "Maybe harvest will be early too." These mundane observations carry weight in your world. Crop timing isn't just conversation, it's survival information. Noting when plants flower, when birds nest, when certain insects appear. These observations help predict weather patterns and plan agricultural work. As your group returns to the village, laden with firewood and a few early mushrooms, but no rabbits yet, you pass by the village green where Father Ethelred supervises children practicing for the Easter pageant. Medieval religious observances aren't just solemn services, they include community performances with villagers playing biblical roles in dramatized stories. Children are rehearsing the resurrection scene, with a small boy struggling to remember his lines as an angel. "No, no," the priest corrects patiently. "You say, 'He is not here, for he has risen,' before you point to the tomb." These religious plays serve multiple purposes: education for the largely illiterate population, community bonding, and entertainment in a world without modern diversions. They're taken seriously despite amateur performances. Nearby, older children receive rudimentary education. Medieval peasants don't attend school as we understand it, but some basic knowledge transfers through informal teaching. A group of boys learns woodworking from the village carpenter. Several girls practice spinning wool under an older woman's guidance. "Hold the distaff higher," she instructs. Keep tension on the thread. Skills pass from generation to generation through this apprenticeship model. There are no textbooks, no formal classes, just observation, practice, and correction. By adulthood, everyone possesses practical abilities essential for survival, even without formal education. Your own education has happened the same way, learning farming from your father, foraging from your mother, religious knowledge from the priest. Book learning is for nobility and clergy, not peasants. Most serfs, including your parents, cannot read or write. That evening brings a rare treat. The travelling peddler arrives. Even in normal times, his visits occur only a few times yearly. After the recent troubles, his appearance feels almost miraculous. The entire village gathers as he unpacks his goods. He carries items impossible to produce locally: needles, pins, small metal tools, salt, spices, thread, ribbons, luxuries by medieval standards, necessities for many tasks. 3 eggs for a needle, he offers to a woman who lost her sewing implements in the fire. No coins change hands in most transactions. Medieval peasants operate largely without money, using barter instead. The woman nods, running home to fetch eggs. A steep price, but needles are precious metal items she can't make herself. Your mother eyes a packet of salt longingly. Since the raid, this essential preservative has been scarce. Without it, smoking and drying are the only food preservation methods available to your family. What for the small salt bag? She asks. The peddler considers. Those woolens you're making? 1 finished cap. She nods. It's a fair trade, her labour and materials for his goods. She's been spinning and knitting in every spare moment, creating garments that can be traded when opportunities like this arise. The peddler also brings news, always a valuable commodity in an isolated world without mass communication. Kings raising taxes for another war in France, he tells the gathered villagers. Lord Northbrook had to sell 3 villages to pay his share. This sparks concerned murmurs. When lords sell villages, serfs are transferred to new masters. Sometimes conditions improve under new ownership, often they worsen. Any word of Lord Westfield's raiders? Someone asks. The peddler nods grimly. They hit Sutton last week, burned the mill there too. This news confirms suspicions that the attacks are systematic, not random, a deliberate campaign by one lord against another, with peasants caught in the middle. As darkness falls, the peddler is offered shelter in the church, the usual arrangement for travellers. Villagers gradually disperse to their homes, discussing the day's exchanges and news. Your family's shelter is slowly improving. The roof leaks less, the walls block more wind. It's still primitive by any modern standard. A single room with a central hearth, no windows, no chimney beyond a hole in the roof, no furniture except a crude bench and table. Dinner consists of barley pottage with foraged greens and those precious bird eggs your sister found. The small protein addition makes everyone's mood lighter, despite the worrying news about continued raids. After eating, your father works by firelight, repairing fishing nets. Your mother continues her knitting, fingers moving skillfully even in dim light. These evening hours are productive time, too valuable to waste on mere rest. Will there be dancing at Easter? Your sister asks suddenly. Your mother smiles. If the priest allows it. Medieval religious festivals balance sacred observance with desperately needed recreation. After church services, communities often enjoy rare opportunities for music, dancing, and games. These celebrations provide crucial psychological relief from relentless work and hardship. Or only if the church roof is finished, your father adds practically. The reconstruction of the partially damaged church has continued alongside other rebuilding efforts, with most work happening after daily agricultural labour. As the fire burns low, conversation dwindles. Your family prepares for sleep, arranging straw pallets around the dying embers. The smoky interior might seem intolerable to modern sensibilities, but to medieval people, it's simply home. Sleep comes quickly after another day of physical labor. Your dreams are simple: food, warmth, safety. The basic needs that dominate waking thoughts don't disappear in slumber. Morning arrives with unexpected excitement. The rabbit snares yielded results. 2 men return from checking them, each carrying a couple of small conies. Not enough to feed everyone, but a significant boost for the families who set the traps. Your family's snare caught nothing, which is disappointing but not surprising. Trapping is part skill, part luck. Edwin receives a portion from another family's catch, though, repayment for his teaching. Again, the web of mutual obligation that defines village life ensures resources circulate to those who contribute. Today's primary community project is finishing the church roof before Easter celebrations. Even those skeptical about religion recognize the church's importance as community infrastructure. You join other young men hauling bundles of reeds for thatching. The thatcher directs operations from atop the partially damaged roof. He's one of few villagers with specialized skills beyond basic farming knowledge. Such expertise elevates his status slightly, though he remains a serf like everyone else. "Tighter bundles," he shouts down. "Don't get sloppy now. Thatching is skilled work requiring specific techniques to ensure water-resistant results. A poorly thatched roof leaks, rots, and requires replacement sooner, wasting precious resources and labor." While working, you notice increased traffic on the road passing the village. People from surrounding areas heading to the local market town. It's market day, held weekly in larger settlements where peasants can trade surplus goods, when they have any, and lords can sell agricultural products from their domain. Your village is too small to host markets, but some residents occasionally travel to participate. Today, no one from your community joins the market goers. There's nothing to sell after the raid, and rebuilding takes priority over trading. Next week, perhaps, your father says, noticing your gaze following the travellers. If fishing improves. By midday, the church roof nears completion. Father Ethelred brings bread for workers, a small offering from church stores. The loaves are dark, but fresher than what most families have been eating, and the gesture is appreciated. God's blessing on your labour, the priest says, distributing food. The church must be ready to celebrate his resurrection. After eating, work continues with renewed energy. The roof will be finished today, allowing final interior preparations for Easter services. Near the partially rebuilt mill, you spot the miller's daughter speaking with the Lord's steward. Their conversation appears tense, heads close together, voices too low to overhear. When they notice others watching, they quickly separate. "Strange," comments Watt, working beside you. "She's not one to consort with the manor folk." The interaction sparks quiet speculation. Relations between manor officials and village women occasionally lead to trouble. Unwanted advances, coerced relationships, children born with uncertain status. The power imbalance makes such situations particularly problematic. "Her father should mind that," another man mutters. "Nothing good comes from mixing with those above your station." Medieval society functions on clear hierarchical boundaries. Relationships that cross those boundaries create complications everyone prefers to avoid. By late afternoon, the church roof stands complete. A small celebration breaks out. Nothing elaborate, just a moment of collective satisfaction at a finished task. Someone produces a crude wooden flute, playing a simple tune while children clap along. These spontaneous moments of joy punctuate the otherwise grueling rhythm of medieval life. Brief, precious instances when work pauses and community bonds strengthen through shared pleasure. Your sister joins other girls in a circle dance, her recent illness seemingly forgotten in the moment. Your mother watches with visible relief, her child's recovery manifest in this simple display of energy and happiness. The music draws Eliza nearer. You find yourself standing awkwardly beside her, unsure what to say outside the context of work. Medieval youth have no dating protocols, no established courtship rituals for common folk. "Nice roof," she offers finally, nodding toward the church. "Should keep the rain out," you agree. It's hardly romantic dialogue, but in your world, practical concerns dominate everything, even attraction. A potential partner's work ethic, physical strength, and practical skills matter more than romantic notions. Marriage is primarily an economic arrangement, a combining of labor capacity for mutual survival. As evening approaches, the brief celebration winds down. Work remains. Animals to tend, gardens to water, food to prepare. The rhythm of labor never truly stops. Your father returns from checking his fishing lines with a single decent-sized fish, enough to flavor the evening pottage but not much more. Still, the family receives the contribution gratefully. Any protein improves the otherwise bland barley porridge that forms your daily sustenance. While eating, your father shares news heard from men working on the mill. "The Lord's called able men to training next week," he says. Archery practice. Military training periodically interrupts agricultural work. Medieval lords maintain the right to call upon peasants for defense. While professional soldiers handle most warfare, serfs can be conscripted for local defense or to fulfill the lord's obligations to higher nobles. "For how long?" your mother asks, concern evident. Time away from fields means potential food shortages later. "Just 2 days," your father answers. "After Easter." It's an inconvenience, but not catastrophic. The timing between planting and first harvest allows some flexibility for non-agricultural activities. As night falls, your family discusses plans for Easter Sunday. The holiday brings rare privileges, better food, if available, new clothes, when possible, and an afternoon free from labour after religious obligations. "I've saved a bit of honey," your mother reveals, "for small cakes." This surprising luxury has been hidden away for a special occasion. Honey is precious, a natural sweetener in a world without sugar for common folk. Its preservation for Easter demonstrates the holiday's significance in medieval life. With anticipation of tomorrow's modest celebration, your family settles for sleep. Outside, a gentle rain begins falling, good for newly planted fields, less pleasant for those whose shelter repairs remain incomplete. The rain patters on your roof, mercifully not penetrating the recently improved thatch. As you drift towards sleep, your thoughts turn to simple hopes. Continued fair weather for crops, no new raids, perhaps a successful hunt. Medieval dreams aren't grand aspirations for wealth or status advancement. Social mobility barely exists. Dreams focus instead on immediate needs: food, safety, community, the small pleasures possible within a highly constrained existence. Yet within these constraints, medieval people find meaning and satisfaction. The shared struggle against hardship, the small victories of survival, the community bonds forged through interdependence, the rhythm of seasonal celebrations breaking the monotony of labour. Through modern eyes, medieval peasant life seems unrelentingly harsh. Through medieval eyes, it simply is what it is. The only reality known, accepted with a stoicism modern people might find difficult to comprehend. Rain continues falling gently as sleep claims you. Tomorrow brings Easter, a brief respite in the constant work of survival. For now, that's enough to look forward to. Easter morning dawns clear and bright, as if nature itself acknowledges the holy day. Your family wakes early, not for work this time, but for church. Everyone dons their cleanest clothes, which is a relative term after the raid and rebuilding. Still, efforts have been made. Faces scrubbed with cold water, hair combed with wooden combs, small repairs made to torn garments. "Here," your mother says, pinning a tiny sprig of greenery to your sister's dress. This modest decoration is as close to finery as most peasants manage. Medieval Easter isn't the chocolate bunny celebration of modern times. It's the most important religious festival of the Christian year. A day when even the humblest serf stops working to attend church. After the long restrictions of Lent, it's also a rare occasion for communal celebration and slightly better food. The whole village walks together to the newly repaired church. The atmosphere feels lighter than usual, a collective exhale after weeks of hardship. Children run ahead, excited for the day's special activities. Adults talk quietly, enjoying the simple pleasure of unhurried conversation. Inside the small wooden church, everyone stands, no pews or chairs for the congregation. Only the elderly and infirm might sit on brought stools. Medieval church services aren't participatory events where lay people read scripture or lead prayers. The priest conducts the Latin Mass while villagers mostly observe, kneeling or standing at appropriate moments. Father Ethelred wears his finest vestments for Easter, threadbare though they may be. The altar is decorated with early spring flowers, pale primroses, bright celandines, and delicate wood anemones gathered by village children. "Christus resurrexit," the priest intones. "Vera resurrexit," responds the small choir of village boys he's trained to sing the Latin replies. Most villagers understand little of the Latin service, but they know the rhythms, the expected responses, the moments to kneel or cross themselves. Religious instruction happens through sermons delivered in English after the formal Latin portions. Today's sermon focuses on resurrection and renewal, themes that resonate powerfully with a community rebuilding after destruction. Father Ethelred draws explicit parallels between Christ's resurrection and the village's recovery from the raid. "As our Lord rose from death, so too shall our village rise from ashes," he declares. "Through faith and labour, God's will be done." The sermon continues with practical moral guidance, reminders about tithing, the church's share of produce, warnings against sin, and encouragement for charity among neighbours. Medieval religion blends spiritual concerns with everyday governance, the church serving as both moral compass and administrative structure. After the service ends, the day's true celebration begins. Tables are set up on the village green, simple plank boards on trestles. Each family contributes what they can to a communal feast. By modern standards, it's a meagre spread, but after weeks of near starvation, it seems abundant. Your mother's honey cakes draw admiration. Small, dense patties of barley flour sweetened with precious honey, they're a once-yearly treat. The village baker, who lost his oven in the raid and has only recently rebuilt it, contributes actual wheat bread, lighter and finer than the daily barley loaves. "Real wheat," your sister whispers in awe, taking her small portion. Someone has slaughtered a pig, a significant sacrifice of future breeding potential for immediate celebration. The rich smell of roasting pork fills the air. The meat will be stretched to provide just a morsel for everyone, but even a taste of fat and protein feels luxurious after weeks of thin gruel. You notice Eliza with her family across the green. Her mother looks thin and worn, but today she smiles, watching her younger children play a ring game with others. Eliza catches your eye and gives a small nod. In the context of medieval village life, it's a meaningful acknowledgement. "Go talk to her if you want," your mother says quietly, noticing the exchange. "It's a feast day." Social rules relax slightly during celebrations. Young people may interact more freely, though always within sight of the community. Medieval courtship happens in plain view. No private dates, no unsupervised meetings. Before you can decide whether to approach Eliza, a commotion at the village edge draws everyone's attention. Riders approach, 3 men wearing the Lord's colours, led by the steward. Their arrival during Easter celebrations is unusual and concerning. Conversation dies as the horsemen reach the green. The steward dismounts while his companions remain on horseback, hands resting meaningfully on sword hilts. The message is clear. This isn't a social visit. The Lord sends Easter greetings, the steward announces, his formal words at odds with his grim expression. A collective murmur of acknowledgement ripples through the gathered villagers. The proper response would include expressions of gratitude for the Lord's attention, but enthusiasm is notably lacking. He also brings news, the steward continues. Lord Westfield's men attacked Thornbridge yesterday. 8 dead. Thornbridge lies just a half-day's walk from your village. The conflict is moving closer. Fear ripples through the crowd, subtle but palpable in shifted stances and exchanged glances. The Lord requires all able men for defence training tomorrow at dawn, the steward declares. Bring any weapons you possess. Those without will be provided staves. This announcement transforms the celebration instantly. Men exchange concerned looks. Women draw children closer. The brief respite from worry evaporates. We're still planting the north field, protests the reeve cautiously. The steward's expression hardens. The Lord's command is clear: dawn tomorrow. Without waiting for further discussion, he remounts and the 3 riders depart, leaving a community whose celebration has been effectively ended. For a few moments, silence hangs heavy over the gathering. Then, gradually, conversation resumes, but the tone has shifted. Speculative whispers replace earlier laughter. The feast continues because no one would waste precious food, but the joyous atmosphere is gone. Will there be fighting here? Your sister asks, her voice small with fear. Oh no, your father answers with more conviction than he likely feels. The Lord will protect his property. His choice of words is telling. Protection of property, not people. In the feudal worldview, serfs are essentially living assets attached to the land. Your safety matters primarily as it affects your productive value. Despite the worrying news, the community attempts to salvage something of the holiday. After eating, traditional Easter games begin: egg-rolling contests for children, wrestling matches for young men, dancing to simple music played on handmade instruments. You join a group of young men in an archery contest using crude bows. The activity takes on new significance given tomorrow's mandatory training. Most peasants have limited experience with weapons. Hunting is forbidden to serfs in most places, so archery skills develop through informal practice rather than regular use. Aim higher, advises Edwin, watching your arrow fall short of the target, a stuffed sack hanging from a tree branch. Allow for the drop. Your next shot comes closer, but still misses. Accuracy with a medieval longbow requires years of practice, not hours. English kings will eventually mandate regular archery training for peasants, creating the legendary corps of longbowmen that dominates later medieval battlefields. But that systematic military preparation lies in the future. As afternoon wanes, the dancing begins in earnest. A circle forms on the green, with musicians providing lively tunes on pipe, drum, and fiddle. Medieval village dances aren't the elaborate court affairs of nobility, but simpler ring dances and line formations where everyone can participate, regardless of skill. Your mother nudges you toward the circle where Eliza stands with other young women. The encouragement isn't subtle, but it reflects medieval practicality about courtship. Marriage typically happens in the late teens or early 20s for peasants, with parents actively promoting suitable matches. "They're playing 3 around," Eliza says as you awkwardly join the circle near her. It's a common dance where 3 people link arms and spin within the larger circle. "I know the steps," you reply, though dancing isn't your strength. Few medieval peasant men would admit to enjoying dance, but participation is expected at festivals. The musicians pick up tempo, and the dance grows more energetic. For a while, the community surrenders to the simple joy of movement and music. Children weave between dancing adults. Elders clap along from the sidelines. Even the priest watches with benevolent approval. Religious strictures relaxed for the holiday. In these moments, medieval life reveals its surprising pockets of joy amid hardship. Celebration isn't just permitted, but necessary, a pressure valve releasing the tension of constant labor and precarious survival. As the dance ends, you find yourself standing near Eliza, both slightly breathless from exertion. "My father says you're joining the archery practice," she says. "Not much choice," you answer with a shrug. "My uncle was an archer for the previous lord," she offers. "He says the trick is in the fingers, not the arm." This small exchange, practical advice wrapped in personal connection, exemplifies medieval courtship. No flowery declarations or romantic gestures, just the gradual building of practical alliance through shared knowledge and community ties. The celebration continues until sunset, though subdued by the steward's announcement. As darkness falls, families gather their belongings and head home, saving precious candles and lamp oil by sleeping with the sun's schedule. Your family walks together through the dusky village. Despite the day's worries, there's a contentment that comes from rare leisure and slightly fuller bellies. Even medieval peasants recognize the psychological value of occasional respite from toil. "The honey cakes were perfect," your father tells your mother, a simple compliment that brings a smile to her tired face. At home, your family settles for the night with unusual ease. The physical release of dancing and the slightly more abundant food creates a deeper exhaustion than regular labor. A pleasant heaviness in limbs and eyelids. Sleep comes quickly, but doesn't last. Well before dawn, a pounding on your door jolts everyone awake. "Up, everyone up," comes a shout from outside. Your father rushes to the door to find the reeve and several other men, faces grim in the pre-dawn darkness. "Raiders," the reeve says without preamble, "spotted an hour's ride south, moving this way." The warning spreads through the village like wildfire. Within minutes, the entire community is awake and mobilizing with practiced efficiency born of recent experience. This is not the first crisis they've faced. "Get the children to the church," directs the reeve. Women gather food and valuables. Men bring anything that can serve as a weapon to the green. The calm coordination might surprise modern observers. There's fear, certainly, but no panic. Medieval peasants live perpetually on disaster's edge. Response patterns are established, almost instinctual. Your mother and sister join other women hurrying children toward the stone church, the most fire-resistant structure in the village. Your father grabs his wood-cutting axe and fishing spear before heading to the green. "Stay with them," he tells you, nodding toward your mother and sister. "Protect them if needed." It's a significant moment, recognition that at your age you straddle the boundary between child and man, old enough to defend family if necessary, young enough that your father doesn't automatically include you among the fighting men. You hesitate, torn between following your mother and joining your father. Medieval masculinity offers little room for indecision in crisis. Fighting is men's domain, protection of children women's responsibility. These gender roles aren't suggestions but rigid expectations, especially in emergencies. Go, your father repeats more firmly. Now. Decision made for you, you follow your mother toward the church. Dawn breaks as you reach it, pale light revealing a building crowded with women, children, and the elderly. Father Ethelred moves among them, offering prayers and practical assistance. From the church doorway you watch the village men gathering on the green. Barely 30 fighters, armed with farm tools, crude bows and a few actual weapons. They look pitifully unprepared for battle, these farmers with calloused hands better suited to ploughs than swords. The steward arrives with 6 mounted men-at-arms, professional fighters from the manor house. Their presence should be reassuring, but their small number underscores how little protection the Lord actually provides. The manor's main fighting force must be elsewhere, perhaps defending more valuable properties. They come from the South Road, the steward announces. Perhaps 20 riders. We hold at the village edge. A defensive strategy forms quickly. The mounted men-at-arms will meet the initial charge. Village men will support with missile weapons, bows, slings, thrown rocks from behind makeshift barricades. From your position, you can see your father being positioned with other men behind a hastily constructed barrier of wagons and furniture. The primitive defences look woefully inadequate against mounted raiders. Inside the church, women organise themselves with similar efficiency. Some comfort children, others prepare bandages from torn cloth, anticipating injuries. A few stand near the door with kitchen knives and heavy wooden implements, last resort weapons if the men's defence fails. Your mother puts you in charge of several small children, keeping them away from the door and windows. Your sister helps an elderly woman find a seat on one of the few benches. Tell us a story, begs a small boy in your care, eyes wide with fear he doesn't fully understand. Medieval children experience war and violence as routine aspects of life. They're not sheltered from hardship or death. Still, distraction helps. Once, a clever rabbit tricked a wolf, you begin, falling into a familiar folktale. The simple story captures the children's attention, momentarily diverting them from surrounding tension. Outside, shouts indicate the raiders have been sighted on the road. The church falls silent except for your continued storytelling and the priest's murmured prayers. What follows is the most agonizing experience of waiting. No windows face the village entrance, so those inside the church can only listen to distant shouts, the thunder of hooves, metallic clangs of weapons, and occasional screams that might be pain or battle fury. Your storytelling falters as the sounds intensify. The small children press closer, seeking comfort you're barely old enough to provide. Your mother moves to help, gathering the youngest into her lap while maintaining a calm expression that must require immense effort. Time stretches unbearably. Medieval battles aren't the hours-long affairs depicted in movies, but brief, brutal clashes often resolved in minutes. The continued noise outside suggests something more prolonged, not a good sign for defenders likely outnumbered and outmatched. Then, unexpectedly, a different sound cuts through the chaos. A horn blowing in a distinctive pattern. 3 short blasts, repeated. "The Lord's signal," whispers an old man nearby. "Reinforcements." Hope flickers through the huddled crowd. Perhaps the manor's main fighting force has arrived after all. The battle sounds shift perceptibly. Shouts of alarm from new voices, the thunder of fresh hoofbeats, the clash of weapons intensifying before gradually diminishing. Finally, after what feels like hours but might be only 30 minutes, the church door opens. The reeve stands there, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead, but standing unassisted. "It's over," he announces, raiders repelled. A collective exhale moves through the crowd. Women begin searching for their husbands and sons. Children cry for fathers. The elderly struggle to their feet, joints stiff from crouching on cold stone floors. Outside, the village presents a chaotic scene. Several buildings burn at the settlement edge. Bodies lie scattered, most wearing unfamiliar colours, but some in village clothing. The wounded sit or lie where they fell, being tended by whoever is nearest. Your family reunites near the church door. Your father lives, though his left arm hangs useless at his side, a hasty bandage already blood-soaked. "Just a cut," he insists, though his pallor suggests otherwise. "Sword caught me before I got out of reach." For a medieval peasant with no access to proper medical care, even just a cut can become life-threatening through infection. But for now, he stands and breathes, which is victory enough. The Lord himself arrived with reinforcements, you learn, unusual for a nobleman to personally defend a peasant village. His timely arrival likely saved the entire community from slaughter or worse. "Not charity," Edwin explains, seeing your confused expression. "We're harvesting his grain come summer. Dead serfs mean no harvest." The pragmatic assessment isn't meant to be cynical, just realistic. Medieval relationships between lords and peasants rarely involve sentimental attachment. Protection is provided as property management, not humanitarian concern. As the immediate crisis subsides, attention turns to casualties and damage. 3 villagers dead, 7 wounded seriously enough to require ongoing care, 2 homes completely destroyed by fire, several others damaged. Just when recovery from the previous raid had begun, the cycle of destruction restarts. The resignation on villagers' faces speaks volumes about medieval resilience. They've survived, most of them, and will rebuild again because there's no alternative. That night, your family squeezes into shelter with neighbours since your father's injury makes him a priority for indoor rest. Every available space throughout the village houses someone. The wounded, those whose homes burned, or those simply too traumatised to sleep alone. Medieval communities compress together in crisis, finding safety in proximity. Individual boundaries matter less than collective survival. Personal space is a luxury unknown to your ancestors. By firelight, adults discuss the day's events in hushed tones while children pretend to sleep nearby. Lord Westfield himself led them, someone reports, recognised his banner. Bold, attacking in daylight, another comments. Desperate, corrects an older voice. Man who risks himself in battle is either very brave or very desperate. This strategic assessment from ordinary peasants might surprise modern people who imagine medieval serfs as ignorant and unsophisticated. In reality, they understood power politics intimately. Their lives depended on accurately reading the conflicts between their betters. Talk turns to immediate concerns. Additional guards will be needed tonight in case of a second attack. The Lord's men remain in village for protection, but watchful eyes among trusted villagers provide additional security. As true night falls, conversation gradually fades. Exhaustion from fear, fighting, and emotion overcomes even the most talkative. Bodies settle into whatever uncomfortable positions available space allows. Your position near the hearth provides a view of your father's sleeping face, relaxed now from the herbal pain remedies provided by a village healer. The wound looked cleaner when rebandaged, a promising sign, though infection remains a constant threat in a world without antibiotics. Your mother sits nearby, fingers automatically spinning wool even in this moment of rest. Medieval hands rarely stay idle when awake. Productivity isn't just virtuous but necessary when survival margins remain so thin. Outside, occasional footsteps mark the patrol of watchmen circling the village perimeter. Their presence provides small comfort as you finally drift towards sleep, mind replaying the day's dramatic swing from celebration to violence. This is medieval life distilled to its essence, the constant proximity of joy and terror, feast and famine, peace and warfare. No modern person truly experiences such extremes compressed into single days, such vulnerability to forces beyond control. Yet medieval people adapted to this reality, developed resilience modern humans might envy. They lived each day fully because tomorrow held no guarantees. They celebrated when possible because opportunities might not come again. They grieved losses quickly because survival demanded moving forward. As sleep finally claims you, the last conscious thought is gratitude, not just for survival, but for the community that makes survival possible. In medieval England, no one makes it alone. Interdependence isn't philosophical but practical, woven into every aspect of daily existence. Tomorrow will bring renewed labour, rebuilding, healing. The rhythm continues because it must. Life persists against impressive odds through collective effort and stubborn determination. And perhaps when the immediate crisis passes, there might be a moment to speak with Eliza again about archery techniques and finger positions, because even in medieval England, life consists of more than mere survival. The human spirit seeks connection, purpose, and occasional joy amidst the struggle. Days after a battle hold their own unique rhythm. The initial crisis passes, but its aftermath lingers. Wounds that need tending, damage requiring repair, trauma sitting heavy in people's hearts. Your village enters this quiet recovery phase as spring deepens around you. Your father's wound becomes the family's primary concern. The deep sword cut on his arm shows troubling signs. Red streaks extending from the edges, increasing pain, warmth to the touch. These symptoms spell danger in any era, but in medieval England without antibiotics, they could be a death sentence. "Let me see," says Agnes, the village's closest equivalent to a doctor. She's an elderly woman whose knowledge of healing herbs has been accumulated through decades of practical experience, not formal education. She unwraps the bandage carefully, her face revealing nothing. She examines the angry wound. Your mother watches anxiously, your sister clinging to her skirt. "Needs cleaning again," Agnes pronounces. "And poultice. Fetch me comfrey root, ground, and honey if you have it." Medical care in medieval times isn't completely ineffective. Despite lacking germ theory, some traditional remedies contain genuinely beneficial properties. Honey has antibacterial qualities. Certain herbs contain compounds that fight infection or reduce inflammation. The knowledge is empirical rather than scientific. They know what works without understanding why. Your mother produces the last of your precious honey while Agnes prepares a poultice of crushed herbs. "Hold him," she instructs as she begins cleaning the wound with boiled water and vinegar. Your father, stoic until now, can't suppress a groan as she works. Medieval pain management consists primarily of alcohol, willow bark, a natural source of aspirin, or simply endurance. Agnes has brought a small amount of precious poppy syrup, but saves it for after the worst is done. "The sword was filthy," she comments, extracting a tiny thread of cloth from the wound. "Left fabric inside, that's what festers." Modern doctors would recognize this as a basic debridement procedure, cleaning foreign material from a wound to prevent infection. Agnes performs it with surprising precision using primitive tools, a narrow bone needle and steady hands. When she finally rebandages the arm, your father father looks exhausted but relieved. "Will it heal?" he asks directly. Agnes considers. Medieval healers don't sugarcoat prognoses. If the red streaks recede by tomorrow, yes. If they spread to your chest. She doesn't complete the sentence. Everyone understands. "I'll return at midday," she says, gathering her supplies. She refuses payment now. A tacit acknowledgement that compensation depends on outcome. If her treatment fails, your family's resources are better saved for funeral expenses. This pragmatic approach to life, death, and commerce might seem cold to modern sensibilities, but it's normal in your world. Medieval people face mortality with clear-eyed acceptance born of constant proximity to death. That evening brings an unexpected visitor. The Lord's steward. His arrival at your humble shelter raises eyebrows among neighbours. Such officials rarely interact directly with individual peasant families except to deliver punishments or demands. He enters without ceremony, ducking beneath the low doorway. The small interior suddenly feels crowded with his presence. The Lord inquires after the wounded, he announces, his gaze finding your father sitting against the wall, arm carefully positioned across his chest. "I live," your father answers simply. The steward nods. "Good. The Lord recognizes your service in village defense. You're granted 3 days exemption from labor once deemed fit to work." This pronouncement sends a ripple of surprise through your family. Such consideration from nobility is rare, practically unheard of. Your father's contribution must have been more significant than you realized. The Lord also brings this. The steward produces a small ceramic pot sealed with wax. From the lady's own stores, for the wound. He places the pot on your crude table before departing without waiting for thanks. The gift's value isn't primarily in the ointment itself, though that's precious enough. The real significance lies in the acknowledgement of your father's worth, a subtle elevation of status within the rigid hierarchy. After he's gone, your mother carefully opens the pot to reveal a green-tinted salve with a sharp herbal smell. "The lady's own recipe," she whispers, genuine awe in her voice. "They say she learned healing arts in France. Medieval noblewomen often possessed medical knowledge, part of their expected domestic management skills. Access to exotic ingredients and written texts gave them advantages over peasant healers like Agnes, who relied solely on local plants and oral tradition. The noble lady's ointment represents the pinnacle of 11th century medical technology, still primitive by modern standards, but the best available in your time and place. Its application to your father's wound isn't just treatment, but an honour, a tangible connection to the mysterious world of nobility that usually remains distant from serf life. Morning brings cautious optimism. The angry red streaks haven't advanced, and your father's fever seems less intense. Whether from Agnes's poultice, the lady's ointment, or simply good fortune, improvement appears underway. Medieval recovery timelines extend far longer than modern ones, but any positive sign offers hope. With your father unable to work fields, responsibilities shift within the family. You take his place in communal labour, joining men twice your age in the ongoing rebuilding efforts. Your mother and sister handle tasks typically assigned to you, alongside their own endless work. Gender roles in medieval society typically maintain clear divisions, but necessity often blurs these boundaries in peasant families. When survival is at stake, pragmatism trumps convention. That day's primary village project is repairing the mill again, damaged but not destroyed in the recent attack. The structure's importance to community survival makes it a constant priority. Without grinding capability, grain becomes significantly less usable for human consumption. "Lift on 3!" directs the master carpenter, coordinating 6 men hoisting a replacement beam into position. You strain alongside adults, your younger muscles earning grudging approval from older workers. Medieval construction uses remarkably few metal components. Wooden pegs, precise joinery, and structural understanding passed through generations of craftsmen create surprisingly durable buildings without modern fasteners. The miller watches anxiously, calculating lost grinding time and revenue with each passing day. Midday brings a welcome interruption, the reeve announcing the Lord's Court will convene tomorrow. All households must send representation, he declares, a formality since attendance is mandatory. Manor courts represent a key component of medieval justice and administration. Held regularly, typically every 3 weeks, these sessions handle everything from minor disputes between villagers to land transfers, marriage licenses, and punishment for infractions of local custom. Will they address the raid? Someone asks. The reeve nods. The Lord wishes to discuss defence improvements. This sparks immediate speculation. Wall around the village, additional watchmen, weapons distribution. Medieval villages rarely have defensive walls, an expensive undertaking typically reserved for towns and cities, but after multiple attacks, improved security becomes worth considering. Afternoon brings Agnes to check your father's wound again. Her weathered face shows cautious approval at what she finds. Red fades, she notes. Keep with the lady's ointment. And this. She provides a small bundle of dried herbs. Steep in hot water. Drink thrice daily. Medieval healing balances external treatments with internal remedies, believing body systems require rebalancing. The herbal tea likely contains willow bark for pain and fever, perhaps mixed with other plants believed to purify blood or strengthen vital humours. That evening, your family discusses the upcoming court session. Your father obviously cannot attend, so you'll represent the household. Another step toward adult responsibilities in a world where childhood ends early. Listen more than speak, your father advises. Stand with other villagers. Don't draw notice unless called upon. This guidance reflects serf survival strategies within the feudal system. Individual initiative rarely benefits peasants. Safety lies in collective anonymity, in being indistinguishable from one's neighbours. If the Lord addresses you directly about the raid, he adds, speak plainly. No embellishment. Medieval nobles value different qualities in peasants than in their peers. While knights and fellow nobles might impress with eloquence or bravado, serfs are expected to display straightforward honesty and deference. Attempting to speak above one's station typically backfires. Morning of court day brings a flurry of preparation throughout the village. People don their cleanest clothing, hair is combed, faces scrubbed. Physical appearance at court matters, not for fashion's sake, but because presenting oneself properly shows respect for authority. The court convenes in the manor's great hall, a timber building far larger and more solidly constructed than village homes. For many peasants, these sessions provide their only glimpse inside the manor house where their lord resides. You enter with other villagers, careful to maintain appropriate demeanour, eyes lowered, posture respectful but not cringing, hands folded to display peaceful intentions. The stone floor and plastered walls feel alien after the humble materials of village construction. The Lord sits on a carved chair at the room's end, flanked by his steward and the village priest. This triumvirate represents the 3 pillars of medieval authority: secular power, administrative function, and religious sanction. Court begins with formulaic declarations establishing the Lord's right to hold session, then practical matters, 2 villagers disputing ownership of a cow, a fine for failing to maintain a drainage ditch, permission granted for a marriage between cousins with appropriate payment to church and lord. Finally, the matter everyone awaits: village defence. Recent attacks cannot continue, the Lord declares. Unlike Church Latin, these proceedings happen in the vernacular so all can understand. I've lost valuable property. You've lost homes and kin. Notice the order of his concerns. His property first, human casualties second. This isn't considered callous in medieval thinking, but natural prioritization within the social hierarchy. Therefore, he continues, 3 measures shall be implemented. The hall falls completely silent as he outlines his plan. First, a ditch and bank will surround the village perimeter, not a proper wall, but a defensive barrier requiring considerable labour to construct. Second, 6 men will receive specialised weapon training and form a village militia. Third, a watchtower will be built at the village edge for earlier warning of approach. These improvements represent significant investment of resources and a departure from normal practice. Medieval lords typically concentrate defences around their own residences, leaving peasant villages vulnerable. This unusual attention suggests either genuine concern or, more likely, recognition that these particular raids target his economic interests directly. Construction begins tomorrow, the steward adds. All able men required. Just like that, another massive labour project joins the already overwhelming workload of spring planting, rebuilding, and regular agricultural duties. No one protests. The defensive improvements benefit everyone, and besides, refusing the Lord's command isn't an option. As court concludes, the Lord unexpectedly addresses specific villagers who distinguish themselves during the raid. Your name comes among them, bringing a shock of fear at being singled out. Step forward, the steward directs. You approach and kneel as others have done, eyes carefully lowered. You kept children safe in the church, the Lord states. The fact that he knows this specific detail suggests either the priest or others reported individual actions during the crisis. Yes, my lord, you confirm, using the formal address required when speaking directly to nobility. Good. You're assigned to militia training. Report tomorrow with the others named. This isn't a request, but a command, despite being framed as recognition. In medieval society, rewards often manifest as additional responsibilities rather than tangible prizes or leisure. The implications register as you return to your place among villagers. Militia training means learning weapon use, skills typically forbidden to peasants except during specific crises. It means higher status within the village hierarchy. It also means less time for regular agricultural work, potentially threatening your family's already precarious food security. Court dismisses shortly after. Villagers exit in the same order they entered, another ritual reinforcing social structure. Outside, reactions to the defensive measures mix relief with concern about the additional labour requirements. A ditch won't stop mounted raiders, comments Edwin, sceptically. Better than nothing, counters another man. Slows them at least. Walking home, you spot Eliza carrying water from the stream. The heavy buckets strain her arms, water sloshing with each step. Without thinking, you move to help, taking one bucket despite your own fatigue. Thanks, she says, adjusting her grip on the remaining load. Heard you're joining the militia. News travels instantly in small communities where privacy barely exists. Not by choice, you admit. Still, she responds, it's recognition. Her tone carries something beyond casual observation, perhaps pride. The The subtle interaction represents medieval courtship progress. No declarations of feeling, no physical contact, just gradually increasing personal awareness within strictly controlled social boundaries. At home, you find your father sitting up, looking stronger than yesterday. The infection appears to be retreating, though complete recovery remains weeks away. You share the court news, including your militia assignment. Significant, he comments, understanding implications you've only partly grasped. The Lord rarely arms serfs permanently. This observation highlights a fundamental tension in medieval society. Nobility depend on peasant labour but fear peasant rebellion. Teaching weapon skills to serfs carries inherent risk for the established order. The Lord's willingness to create a village militia suggests the external threat has overcome this traditional caution. Your mother looks worried. When will you work our strips? The planting needs tending. Her practical concern cuts through status considerations. Medieval peasant women focus relentlessly on immediate family survival, sometimes seeing more clearly than men how new obligations might threaten essential food production. Dawn and dusk, you promise. I'll manage both. This commitment means even longer days in a life already defined by constant labour. But the alternative, neglected crops, ensures hunger next winter. Medieval time management isn't about convenience or work-life balance, but maximising productive hours through sheer endurance. That evening, as sunlight fades, your family shares a slightly more substantial meal than recent days. Your father's improving health justifies using precious resources to rebuild his strength. The pottage contains actual meat, small pieces of salt pork saved for emergencies, along with spring vegetables your sister gathered. As you eat, conversation turns to plans for coming weeks. The defensive construction will demand most communal labour, but family plots still need maintenance. Seeds already planted require weeding, thinning, and protection from birds and animals. I can take father's duties at the stream, your sister offers. The daily checking of fishing lines and traps normally falls to men, but gender divisions blur at individual family levels, especially in crisis. Or mind the deep pools, your father cautions, accepting her offer with typical medieval pragmatism. Survival requires flexibility despite cultural norms. Night falls fully, the small fire providing the shelter's only illumination. Medieval evenings extend longer in spring and summer, but productive work eventually yields to darkness. Your family prepares for sleep, arranging straw pallets around the central hearth. Tomorrow brings militia training alongside defensive construction, new responsibilities piled atop existing ones. The physical demands seem impossible by modern standards, yet medieval bodies adapted to these requirements through lifelong conditioning. As sleep approaches, your thoughts drift to the day's events, the Lord's unusual attention to village defence, your unexpected selection for militia training, the brief interaction with Eliza. Medieval life offers few choices but contains surprising complexities within its rigid framework. Outside, a gentle rain begins falling, good for newly planted fields, less welcome for tomorrow's construction work, yet another factor beyond control in a life defined by adaptation to circumstances rather than mastery over them. Your last conscious thought before sleep claims you is simpler, gratitude for your father's improving condition, for the roof that mostly keeps out rain, for the food in your belly, however meagre. Medieval contentment centers on these basic physical securities rather than abstract happiness. In your comfortable modern bed, this mindset might seem primitive or limited, yet it contains wisdom worth considering, appreciation for fundamental necessities often overlooked in societies of abundance. Your medieval ancestors understood viscerally what modern humans sometimes forget. The profound gift of having basic needs met in a world where such security remains perpetually uncertain. Weeks pass, bringing subtle but significant changes. Your father's wound heals slowly but steadily, the infection retreating thanks to Agnes's care and the lady's ointment. Spring deepens towards summer, days lengthening, soil warming, crops sprouting in once barren fields. The village's defensive preparations transform both the landscape and community dynamics. Dawn finds you already awake, dividing your morning between family fields and militia training. The 6 chosen men gather daily before regular work begins, practicing with weapons under the guidance of the Lord's Master-at-Arms, a grizzled veteran missing 2 fingers and possessing seemingly infinite patience. No, he corrects, adjusting your grip on the spear for perhaps the 20th time. Thumb along the shaft, not wrapped around. You'll break it on impact otherwise. Medieval weapon training isn't about finesse or sport, but practical, life-preserving techniques. The spear becomes your primary assigned weapon, relatively simple to master compared to sword or bow, yet effective against mounted opponents when used in formation. Think of it as an extension, the Master-at-Arms instructs, not a separate thing. Move your body, the spear follows. Your muscles ache constantly now, not just from normal agricultural labour, but from the unfamiliar movements of weapon practice. Medieval bodies adapted to extraordinary physical demands through necessity, not choice. There were no exercise regimens, just work that gradually shaped muscles for specific tasks. Again, the Master-at-Arms orders, demonstrating a simple thrust and recover motion, until your arms remember without your mind telling them. This concept, muscle memory, exists without scientific terminology. In your world, medieval fighting techniques rely on instinctive responses drilled through endless repetition. There's no time for conscious decision-making in battle's chaos. After training, you join the village's main work party at the defensive ditch. The project has progressed steadily over weeks, a chest-deep trench surrounding the village perimeter, with excavated soil forming an inner bank topped by a simple palisade of sharpened stakes. Not a castle wall by any measure, but a significant deterrent to mounted raiders. "My back is one permanent knot," complains Watt, digging beside you. "Between this, the fields, and rebuilding, I'll be bent double by midsummer." Everyone feels the strain of additional labour demands, yet the work continues without serious complaint. Medieval communities accept hardship as normal, focusing on practical completion rather than personal comfort. The watchtower rises at the village's southern approach, a simple wooden platform elevated on sturdy posts. Not particularly impressive by modern standards, but the height advantage provides crucial minutes of advance warning for approaching threats. Daily life adapts around these new defensive features. Livestock formerly allowed to wander must now be herded through a single gap in the perimeter, closed by a crude gate at night. Water fetchers take longer routes to the stream. Children's play areas shift to accommodate construction. Your family's routine similarly adjusts to changing circumstances. Your father gradually resumes light work despite his still healing arm. Your mother and sister manage garden plots now flourishing with spring vegetables. You balance militia duties with agricultural responsibilities, stealing sleep when possible between endless tasks. "The cabbage is coming nicely," your mother reports one evening, serving a thin vegetable soup that represents gradual improvement in your family's nutrition. Early crops have begun yielding harvestable results, supplementing foraged plants and occasional fish. "First peas should be ready next week," your sister adds. These small victories against hunger deserve celebration in a world where starvation remains a seasonal threat. Medieval meals follow strict hierarchy. Your father receives the largest portion despite his reduced work capacity. You slightly less, your mother and sister less still. This distribution isn't questioned but accepted as proper order. Men performing heavy labor require more fuel. Family survival depends on maintaining their strength. After eating, conversation turns to village news. Medieval communities lack formal information systems, relying instead on constantly circulating gossip and observation. The mill's grinding again, your father notes. Saw smoke from the ovens today. This represents significant progress. The ability to process grain efficiently means proper bread returns to village tables. It's difficult for modern people to appreciate how central bread was to medieval diet, not a side item, but the foundation of most meals. The peddler returns tomorrow, your mother adds. Mary saw him on the North Road. This news brightens everyone's mood. After months of privation and rebuilding, the peddler's arrival suggests return to normal patterns, a small but meaningful step toward recovery. Sleep comes quickly that night, your body demanding rest after another physically demanding day. Medieval sleep patterns differ from modern ones, deeper but often shorter, with frequent waking through the night, without artificial light extending evening activities. Most people slept when darkness fell, sometimes waking for a period in the middle night before returning to sleep until dawn. The next day brings the peddler as promised, his pack seemingly fuller than his previous visit. The village gathers with a new energy, not just the usual interest in goods and news, but a collective hunger for normalcy, for connection with the wider world beyond immediate survival concerns. Brought extra needles this time, the peddler announces, displaying his wares on a cloth spread over a fallen log. And look, proper thread from York. These humble items represent luxury in a community still rebuilding basic necessities. Yet people find items to trade. Eggs now that chickens produce again, small wood carvings made during evening hours, even wildflower honey discovered in a forest hive. And what of Lord Westfield? Someone asks, eager for news about the source of recent attacks. The peddler's expression turns serious. Dead, took an arrow during his last raid. His son sues for peace now. This news ripples through the gathered villagers. The immediate threat that has shaped recent months might truly be ending. The defensive measures, the militia training, perhaps not needed after all, though few regret these precautions. You notice Eliza standing slightly apart from the main crowd, examining a small metal mirror in the peddler's collection, an extravagant luxury by medieval standards, certainly beyond her means to purchase. She catches you watching and quickly returns the mirror to the display, a flush colouring her cheeks. Medieval courtship progresses through small public interactions like this. No private dates, no formal declarations, just gradually increasing awareness between two people, observed and often guided by the surrounding community. "Good morning," you offer, approaching with careful casualness. "Morning," she replies. "Your father seems better, nearly healed, and your uncle, back to full work now." These exchanges might seem mundane, but they represent important social connection in a world where relationships determine survival as much as individual effort. Medieval community functions through intricate webs of obligation, reputation, and mutual support. Your conversation might have continued, but the militia master calls for afternoon practice. The news of Lord Westfield's death doesn't immediately end defensive preparations. Medieval communities have learned caution through generations of hardship. That afternoon brings something new to training, actual metal-tipped spears replacing the wooden practice versions. These represent significant investment by your lord, further evidence of his unusual commitment to village defense. Real weapons demand real respect, the Master-at-Arms warns. A moment's carelessness can cripple or kill. Medieval training includes no safety equipment, no practice rounds, no medical support beyond basic first aid. Injuries during practice are common and accepted as inevitable costs of preparedness. You handle the metal-tipped spear with appropriate reverence, feeling its different balance, the deadly potential of its sharpened head. This weapon represents status elevation. Peasants typically aren't trusted with real weapons except during active conflict. The Lord grants these to the village permanently, the Master-at-Arms announces, to be stored in the church between trainings. A militia member found using them for any purpose besides defence answers directly to him. This arrangement, arming peasants while maintaining strict control, reflects careful balancing of competing medieval concerns. Protection requires armed defenders, yet armed peasants historically sometimes turned weapons against oppressive lords. The church storage provides both practical security and symbolic oversight. That evening, returning from training, you pass the manor house perched on its small rise overlooking the village. Unlike the stone castles that will dominate later medieval landscapes, your lord's residence is primarily timber construction, larger and more refined than village buildings, but not the imposing fortress of popular imagination. Movement near the manor's garden catches your attention, the lady herself supervising workers planting medicinal herbs. Her direct involvement in garden management isn't unusual for medieval noblewomen who typically oversaw household production, including food preservation and medicine. She notices your passing and surprisingly gestures you approach. Fear immediately tightens your chest. Direct interaction with nobility holds as much danger as opportunity for medieval peasants. You approach and bow awkwardly, eyes lowered as protocol demands. "You're the boy whose father took the sword wound," she states without introduction. "Yes, my lady." "He recovers?" "Yes, my lady, your ointment helped greatly." She nods, seemingly satisfied. "Good, my steward says you show promise in militia training." This unexpected knowledge of your individual progress is startling. Medieval nobility typically view peasants as interchangeable labour units rather than distinct individuals. "I try, my lady. Continue trying. The militia serves important purpose beyond immediate defence." With that cryptic statement, she dismisses you with a gesture. The brief interaction leaves you puzzled but vaguely encouraged. Recognition from nobility, however minimal, can translate to tangible benefits in medieval society. At home, you find unexpected visitors, the Reeve and Father Ethelred, speaking quietly with your father. Their presence in your humble dwelling suggests matters of unusual importance. "There he is," your father says as you enter. "Tell him." The Reeve clears his throat. "The village needs a new beetle, with old Thomas too injured to continue." This represents significant news. The beetle serves as the Reeve's assistant, helping enforce manor regulations, collect dues, and organise communal work. The position carries modest authority and, more importantly, occasional exemption from regular labour duties. "The Lord Steward approved your appointment pending your acceptance," Father Ethelred adds. The implications are momentous for your family. The position means slightly higher status, potentially better access to resources, and reduced physical labour. Significant advantages in a world where most serfs work themselves to early graves. "Why me?" you ask, genuinely confused. Beetles typically tend to be older men with established community standing. "The militia service marks you already," the Reeve explains practically, "and your father served as beetle before you were born." This revelation surprises you. Your father never mentioned holding any position beyond ordinary field worker. Medieval families often contain hidden histories, unspoken experiences deemed irrelevant to daily survival. Your father's expression shows complex emotions. pride in your selection, perhaps concern about the responsibilities involved. "It's a good opportunity," he says finally, "though not without challenges." The position's duties would complement rather than replace militia training, the Reeve explains. The combined responsibilities represent unprecedented opportunity for a young peasant but demand significant commitment. "Consider until tomorrow," Father Ethelred suggests. "Pray for guidance." After they depart, your family discusses the opportunity openly. Medieval decision-making typically involved family consultation rather than purely individual choice, recognizing how one member's role affected collective welfare. "The work is less breaking on the body," your father acknowledges, "but harder on the mind. You'll stand between village and manor, belonging fully to neither." This liminality, existing between defined categories, creates unique stresses in medieval society, where clear hierarchical position provides identity and security. Advancement opportunities for serfs are so rare, however, that the advantages clearly outweigh potential discomfort. Morning brings your acceptance of the position, delivered to the Reeve before regular work begins. He nods without surprise, having anticipated your decision. "You'll shadow me today," he instructs. Learning begins immediately. The day passes in bewildering introduction to the beetle's responsibilities, recording work completion, noting maintenance needs for communal equipment, helping resolve minor disputes between villagers. The administrative aspects reveal medieval village life's surprising complexity beneath its seemingly simple surface. That evening, exhausted from the day's mental challenges rather than the usual physical fatigue, you notice Eliza approaching your family's shelter, a small cloth-wrapped bundle in hand. "For your father," she explains, presenting what proves to be several dried fish. "My uncle's catch was good today. He remembers your father's help during planting." The gift represents more than mere food. Medieval exchange systems operated through complex reciprocity. Gifts acknowledged previous assistance, created obligation for future help, and signaled social connection. That her family sends her specifically to deliver this gift carries additional meaning not lost on your observant mother. "Stay and share our fire," your mother invites, a significant gesture given limited space and resources. The evening unfolds with unprecedented sociability, actual conversation beyond practical planning, even occasional laughter as your father shares stories from his younger days. Eliza's presence transforms the typical exhausted evening silence into something approaching modern social interaction. When she finally departs, accompanied partway by you as basic courtesy demands, the brief moment of privacy allows direct conversation impossible within family hearing. "I heard about your new position," she says. "Beetle is important work. I'm still learning what it even means," you admit. "My father says a good beetle makes life easier for everyone. A bad one makes enemies on all sides." The observation carries genuine concern rather than criticism, a subtle expression of care within medieval communications' constrained framework. "I'll try to be the first kind," you promise. Her smile, visible even in evening dimness, suggests approval. "I believe you will." This simple exchange represents significant advancement in medieval courtship, direct expression of confidence and approval outside family supervision. No physical contact occurs, no explicit statements of intention, yet both parties understand the interaction's meaning within social context. Returning home, you find your family already settling for sleep, the day's exertions demanding rest despite relatively early evening. Your mother gives you a knowing look but makes no comment about your brief absence. The following days establish new patterns. Mornings dedicated to beetle responsibilities, afternoons to militia training, evenings to family fields and home improvement. The physical demands remain extreme by modern standards, but the variety prevents the soul-crushing monotony that characterized typical serf existence. Your family's circumstances improve incrementally. Your father regains strength enough for light but steady work. The garden produces increasingly abundant vegetables. Your sister's weaving skills earn small but valuable trade items. Your new position brings occasional advantages, slightly larger flour portions from the mill, preference in tool lending, better information about manor decisions affecting village life. These modest improvements represent significant advancement in medieval living standards. The gap between subsistence and modest comfort might seem trivial to modern observers, but within your world it marks the critical difference between mere survival and actual living. Late spring brings the first genuine celebration since Easter, Pentecost, marking 50 days after resurrection. Unlike Easter's muted observance overshadowed by raids, this holiday arrives during relative peace and improving conditions. The church service incorporates new elements, actual candles on the altar rather than simple rushlights, fresh-baked wheat bread for communion rather than barley substitutes, flowers decorating the modest wooden cross. These small luxuries signify community recovery, resources extending beyond bare necessity. Afterward, the village green hosts modest festivities. No elaborate feast, but shared food more abundant than recent months permitted. Music from simple instruments, pipes, drums, a single precious fiddle saved from fires. Dancing in circles and lines, children playing traditional games momentarily freed from adult responsibilities. You notice Eliza helping distribute fresh bread from large baskets. Your positions, she serving food, you maintaining order as beetle, prevent direct interaction, but frequent glances communicate continued awareness. Medieval courtship progressed through such public acknowledgement long before private conversation became acceptable. The celebration continues until sunset, modest by later medieval standards but extravagant compared to recent hardship. People return home tired but nourished in body and spirit, the shared festivity reinforcing community bonds essential for collective survival. That evening, your family discusses summer's approach and accompanying opportunities. Medieval agricultural calendars divided years into distinct work periods, each bringing specific tasks and challenges. First hay cutting soon, your father notes. Good yield by the look of the meadow. Hay represented critical winter survival, fodder for precious livestock that provided dairy, wool, occasional meat, and crucial fertilizer for fields. A good hay harvest meant animals survived winter, producing spring calves, lambs, and continued resources. The Lord grants gleaning rights beginning next week, you add, sharing information learned through your beetle position. Gleaning, collecting leftover grain after official harvest, provided essential supplemental food for medieval peasants. The timing and conditions of gleaning rights varied between manors, sometimes becoming contentious issues between lords and villagers. We'll all go, your mother decides. Even a small extra amount helps through winter. This practical focus on future security characterizes medieval thinking, constant preparation for seasonal scarcity, using current abundance to buffer against inevitable lean periods. Modern instant gratification would seem dangerously short-sighted to your ancestors. As night deepens and the family prepares for sleep, you find yourself reflecting on the extraordinary journey from desperate crisis to modest stability over mere months. Medieval resilience wasn't a personal virtue but a community characteristic, the collective ability to endure, rebuild, and find sustainable patterns even after devastating setbacks. Your medieval counterparts would find certain modern attitudes incomprehensible: the expectation of constant comfort, the assumption of safety, the focus on individual fulfillment above community welfare. Their world demanded different values: endurance, practical cooperation, acceptance of hardship as life's normal state rather than its exception. Yet they would equally struggle to understand modern despair, the epidemic of meaninglessness that plagues wealthy societies. Medieval life's constant physical demands and clear social purpose left little room for existential questioning. When survival requires full attention, abstract anxieties find little purchase. As sleep approaches, your perspective shifts slightly. The medieval hardships detailed throughout this journey, from sharing one-room dwellings with livestock to the constant spectre of starvation, from horrific medical conditions to brutal justice, certainly deserve no romanticization. Yet within these harsh constraints, people found community, purpose, moments of joy, and surprising resilience. They created meaning within narrow possibilities. They endured what modern humans would consider unbearable, not because they possessed greater personal strength, but because their social structures and expectations supported collective survival rather than individual comfort. Perhaps there's wisdom worth reclaiming from these ancestors, not their technology or social hierarchies, but their capacity for finding contentment in small pleasures, their instinctive understanding of mutual dependence, their ability to accept life's fundamental uncertainty, while continuing to plant fields, build homes, and form connections. As your consciousness drifts towards sleep in your comfortable modern bed, so unlike the straw pallet where your medieval counterpart rests, consider carrying something of their perspective into your dreams. The appreciation for simple comforts, the recognition of community's essential value, the patient endurance that allowed humanity to survive centuries of hardship. Their blood runs in your veins, their resilience forms part of your inheritance, and perhaps, in some small way, their hard-earned wisdom might still offer guidance for navigating our own uncertain times, helping you drift peacefully into sleep with renewed appreciation for both modern comforts and timeless human strengths.